Hey everybody, it's Boardman21 and today I'm here with Lizard IRL and we are going to be talking Acolyte skills. This is just going to be like the video we did last time with the discussion on Sentinel and Void Knight skills. It's not a tutorial, it's not a build video, it's not a podcast, not an interview, it's just some information about how we feel about the skills in general, how we would make them better if we could, how we think they run the best, how we think they run the worst, if they're viable in the current game state, when they used to be viable, basically anything and everything about the skills and our experience over the last year with them and what we have found with them, what others have found with them, what we think is a good gameplay, bad gameplay, anything and everything. And we're just going to discuss every single skill that currently has a skill tree on the Acolyte. This will be outdated when patch 7.9 and the Acolyte gets a couple of new skills, but we will update it down the road, especially if mechanics have changed or if word comes back or things that really are built around that class. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. Cool, so Rip Blood, right off the bat.
All right. Uh, I personally love Replot. I think it's a great skill. I think it has many. You can use it. I would say it's one of those skills that you can actually build it to do whatever you want, which I think is pretty cool, right? Like you can for example on the death seal, like you're just using it for full like HP and applying splatters, but you can use it to make ward on a ward build. You can use it to make ward of minions. You can do it. You can make it to do some sort of damage with the recast. It's and the splatter mechanic is really fun. I really like Reblood, and I think the only thing that's a bit overtuned right now is the how the Marrow Drinker, the one that targets your minions. It definitely does too much work with the minions. You can get like 20k worth just hitting your minions. So might need a bit of a tune. But overall, I love the skill, and I love that it has interactions with other skills like Transplant. I really like it. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, that Marrow Drinker I think is actually bugged right now. If you don't cast it like manually, if you use Transplant to actually cast, it won't target your minions.
Oh,
Uh,
really? I know you can cast it on yourself also, so you can just make word of yourself like forever, pretty much.
yeah,
It gets pretty bonkers.
I'm hoping that gets fixed in this next patch because I think it used to work, and then in this most recent patch or two, it got bugged
Uh huh.
because you used to be able to get massive amounts of ward when you hit all of your wraths with it, and then all of a sudden it
Yeah.
stopped doing it.
Well, I still I do it with the skeletons, and I was guessing a lot of, but I've never tried with the rats. So maybe it's just a bug with the rats themselves or something. Because it definitely worked on the skeletons when I was doing it like a week ago.
Were you casting it by itself, or were you using Transplant to have it auto
No,
cast?
I was casting it without transplant. You mean it doesn't work with transplant?
Yeah, so when Transplant does it and
Oh,
you get
I
those
see,
three
I see.
casts, it won't target them.
That's it. Should definitely work then. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that gets fixed because that's something that I
Yeah.
really like to play. Is teaming it up with Transplant.
I just think Replot is one of those abilities. It's bread and butter, right? It's kind of like it's almost like the vengeance of Acolyte at this moment. You almost gonna have Replot on every build almost, right? Because there's not a build that you don't go like, I'll just get Replot. Fits here,
Yeah,
It's always like a nice addition.
yeah, it's a very nice utility that you can work into any build.
Yeah, and you can go for poison if you want, and it can apply crazy poison with the splatters, and you can make it for sustain. You can make it. It's just like great. I really like it. It's great design. I like the tree. Most of the tree is usable, right? I would say only like what the blood infusion stuff is like. Maybe not. I've never used that, but everything else is usable.
You haven't used the blood infusion? Oh, you're missing out.
Uh,
For Necro, it's amazing.
the blood infusion physical leech. No, I haven't used that one. No.
Yeah, getting everything down there. You can hit all your minions with it, and you give them increased damage, increased attack speed,
I
increased
haven't played
leech.
Necro much, so maybe that explains it. But so if even that is usable, then pretty much everything's usable, which is really good news, basically.
Yeah, I can't complain about the skill. I've used every branch on it before. I even tried the hit damage version of it
Yeah,
because
the recast one, yeah.
well, you get the between run dry and working your way down to that necrotic inspiration where you get hit damage per minion. And you team that up with the necrotic unity, which gives you blood splatter damage per minion. You can get 4% damage per minion on that and 3% on the hit damage. So you could imagine on my 100 minion build on the necro that's a huge percentage boost. It didn't do that much damage, but it felt like it should have. But it was still nice damage with Ripblood, which isn't known for hit damage. But
yeah, exactly. It's normally just to apply ailments, right? So
yeah, well, when you use Transplant and cast it 3 times, and then each one of those can do 2 splatters, that's a lot of stacks.
Yeah. I love Ripblood. I love the personality. I think it fills the class. I like the anime. I love that you can always tell when Ripblood is going off. With the orbs flying back to you. It's just like a very iconic skill at this point. I think I really like it.
Oh yeah. Ripblood. I don't think there's much they should do to change it. I think it should stay right where it's at.
Yeah, I agree.
Other than fix the Marrow Drinker when it's cast interactively with another skill.
And maybe buff a bit more, maybe the base damage or the hit damage itself, of the when it says like when it maybe doesn't, I don't know, when it's not casting with Transplant or something. Just so you could like run a Ripblood pure build kind of, but you can kind of do that with poison, so I don't know. But it's a good skill overall.
Yeah, that's true. I would like to see it get some improved cast speed for when you do want to use it as the main skill. But
yeah, it's true. It's a bit slow, right?
Yeah, and you can only get 9% actually in the tree, which is it's a little low compared to some other skills.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
9%. Yeah.
All right. Well, Ripblood, it's got 2 thumbs up.
Yep. We both like or Ripblood, so.
Yeah, that'll probably be the only one we both like.
Love, yeah. Well, there's another one that I'm pretty sure we're both going to like, but we'll get to there.
I hate Deathwave.
No, I don't think it's not Deathwave. It's Wandering Spirits.
Oh, yeah, that one.
You like that one too, right?
It's not that I like it. It's just it's mandatory in my mind.
But I kind of like it though.
Yeah,
it's also like, well.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
All right, Summon Skeleton. You haven't played Necro much, so you might not have tried these summon ones.
I have played Necro recently, like because if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I never played Necro, but I did level up a Necro and I did play. I tried a bit Sacrifice, I tried Reflect here and there. So I've seen a lot of Necro by other players like Otsor, yourself, etc. Right? So I have a good understanding on how it works, and I played it a bit. And Skeletons to me, I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I know the minions are not as great if you don't are running Reflect, right? Because right now all you want with any minion skill, not just the summon skeletons, you just want as much as you can so they can reflect as much as you can, right?
In a Reflect build, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like I wish the minions, the skeletons felt more like real warriors that had like real impact, and a bit more like, for example, in Diablo 2, like when you get like skeletons and you build for it and stuff, you really felt like your skeletons have power, like and in this game I feel like if I don't run the reflect stuff, the minions are, I don't know, they just kind of die. So,
yeah,
I think the skill is cool.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I'd like to see, and I'm surprised they actually don't have these affixes in the game, is minion attack speed, like actual affixes that you can build into.
Yeah.
I feel like you can build into that for your self character, and they have some idols that increase minion attack speed. I think that's only for the primalists though. But on the summon skeleton tree, 25% attack speed is the max that you can get with it. It just feels like that's not really built into it. I mean, they're already not the tankiest minion that you can get, so they die relatively quickly. It would be nice at least if they put out some DPS. They hit pretty low. I mean, even if you go all out on their hit damage, it's still not super high. So it'd be cool if you could build into the attack speed. So if you build like a dot build with them, they can actually apply enough.
I tried, for example, with that thinking process. I tried because you have a lot of like minion poison and stuff on the Necro, right? Like you have the minion chill on hit, and the minion poison on hit and all that.
Yeah.
And you can also get, I think, idols with minion poison minion, right? I think on Acolyte, and it's like, I mean, it would. I think it would. Right now, it's okay-ish, but around around wave 100 or whatever, it just starts falling off just because the minions can't keep up with what you're mentioning, right? They die and they just don't have attack speed to apply enough DPS. So it would be great. Like, I think it's good. I think that the ability is as strong as it should be for like a default ability with no gear. But you should definitely, with your levels and your gear and your investment, you should definitely be able to make these guys better, right? Like, which what you're mentioning, maybe better affixes for giving them more different play styles. Because right now you can basically run only Reflect, and Reflect is another thing that maybe we need to discuss. Because I think Reflect is absolutely, like, the formula behind Reflect is absolutely broken in my opinion. It needs to be reworked in my eyes. So yeah.
Yeah, Reflex one of those weird ones where they wanted to keep it away from being a high damaging skill like on your own character because they don't want you to play where you just sit there and take damage and
Yeah.
kill everything. And that's why I'm surprised they actually have let retaliation. They built into more of it when they redid that passive sentinel tree. Because it's just one of those things where you can just sit there and let things hit you and you kill them for just running through it.
But that's a bit different, right? Because with retaliation on the sentinel, those hits, they're just physical hits that get mitigated, right? Like if the enemy has armor, like the enemy is gonna, it's basically like an extra auto attack, almost feels like, right?
Yeah.
But the thing with Reflect is if an enemy does 1,000 damage to you, right? But then you have protections, right? So you don't take 1,000. Let's just say you take 100, right?
Yep.
And then you have 100% Reflect. Then you do 100 true damage to the enemy, right?
Yep.
So for your own character, this doesn't really work because you're always taking small numbers, right? You always take like 120 damage. So even if you reflect 100% of 20 damage, you're only doing 20 damage, right? The problem is like when you get minions that have no defense and they have 150 chance reflect, and they get hit by 10k because they don't have, because they just get one shot by a Maruna Ogre, and the Maruna Ogre hits 15 minions, and each minion takes 10k damage, right? Well, the Maruna Ogre is doing to himself fucking 20, like almost 1,000,000 damage in if he hits all the minions at the time, and he just explodes because he's taking true damage. And I think the damage from Reflex should get mitigated by the protections of the monster, in my opinion. I don't understand why it's true damage. Like, we don't have any other source of true damage in the game, so it's so broken. It's really broken.
If it got mitigated like that, you think that Reflect builds would work at all? Or do you think you'd have to build like a hybrid?
I think it would work still, because, I mean, even if the minion, like the damage the minion takes is still going to be huge, right? The problem is, like, if the minion takes 1,000 damage, right? And he has 100% reflex, he reflects 1,000, right? But if the problem is that 1,000 that is getting reflected is true damage. It's not getting, the monster can't use his protections against it, right? That is the problem, in my opinion. If that damage, imagine the monster has 50% physical mitigations, right? And he gets reflected 1,000 damage. Well, he's not taking 1,000 anymore. He's taking 500, right? And I think that would make it. It wouldn't make it just like an insta kill of everything, regardless of their level. Because the more damage they do, the more your DPS will never fall off. Because the thing with Reflect is, imagine if your minion has 100 HP, but he gets, when you get hit, it doesn't matter what your HP is. The red number, that pops on your screen, it's the full damage the enemy did. So if you have 100 HP, you can still get hit for 10,000, right?
Yeah.
That red number is the number that gets reflected. So even if your minions are getting one-shotted, because they take 1,000,000 damage, when they die, they're also reflecting the 1,000,000 damage back to the monster. And obviously, there's a lot of minions, and you can just recast them instantly, right? So it's kind of, I think it's crazy. It's just crazy. I feel like that just, it's not a very fun playstyle right now, the build, right? You just sit there and cast Ripblood forward, like the Reflect build. I mean, yours is a bit more engaging with the wards, but the one that people are pushing on the ladder, right? And I think that's the only reason why people are not like using that mechanic more, because it sounds, I think it's just so crazy. If you actually gear properly, so your your actual character doesn't die, and you have enough ward and enough dodge and so on, I think you should be able to push pretty much whatever you want with that. Like, it's 500 for sure.
Yeah, it's a
So
pretty
yeah.
crazy build. I was trying it probably a month ago or so. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's been too much longer than that, but yeah, the damage is pretty crazy on it. And I had wraths going, and I no protections. I gave them as much health as possible, so they would just
Yeah,
take
exactly.
hits, and no minion dodge, no nothing. I just wanted them to take it
Yeah,
and deal it
you
back.
want them to get fucked. Yeah.
And yeah, it was interactive up to a point, and then it just became kind of stupid. But it
Yeah, I mean, you
almost
see a fire golem throws his flamethrower at you, and the golem explodes. And it's like, what happened?
yeah, it was. I want to say that it was, to me, it felt super similar as a sacrifice build, because instead of you
Uh-huh.
exploding your minions for damage, they were doing it for you. So to me, the playstyles felt kind of similar. I think the reflect did way more damage.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That's the thing with in order to do damage with sacrifice, you actually have to like get a good weapon, and like get good damage. Like, you actually have to mechanically like do it properly, right? Because sacrifice is kind of like I mean, it's not the hardest skill to use, but in order to use it effectively, you definitely need to know exactly when to sacrifice. You gotta get your minions going. Like the AOE of sacrifice, maybe you blow up the minions you didn't want to blow up, and it kind of like screws you up and so on, right? It's very high mana cost, so you have to play with that.
Oh,
Uh,
there's ways around that.
yeah. But you can get your mana back when skeletons dies and so on. But it's not just like being there with reflect doing nothing, right?
Yeah, reflect was a little easier and a little more
a
damaging.
little, yeah.
But it was, I mean, it was really the same effect. You were just sacrificing them to die, and then you'd recast them. That's all you did.
I don't know. Which is kind of, I guess it's kind of like the theme of the Necro, right? He doesn't really care about his minions dying that much, but I don't know. I just wish you could actually have an army of death that is actually does actually something else than just like exploding or making stuff explode.
Yes, which
But
brings me
yeah.
into the part of the tree that I like, and that's the where you give your army skills. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
they started that, but they didn't give you a way to really build into them too much. So like,
Yeah, because
let
how do you scale them? Yeah.
let's just start with like the basic the skeletons. If you give your
Mm-hmm.
skeletons like the gain fire arrow ability, this
Yeah.
sounds cool. Like you can do fire arrow archers, but they come with a huge cooldown. You're talking a 6 second cooldown, and then the
Yeah.
only way to like build into it at all, you can do more arrows, but it increases the cooldown. And you have to remember, so if you build into it fully, you can get 3 seconds added onto your 6 seconds. So it's a 9 second cooldown per archer to fire these. How often do your archers actually live that long in a fight? Especially when you get
Yeah.
up to the long bats. Like you're not like you got to
Especially
resummon them.
archers, because you normally just have to get rid of archers because they're not reliable at the moment, right? You just go full knights.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then when you do go knights, like on the are you talking well for this skill rogues,
you just go full warriors. Yeah, you full melee.
but even when you do that and they go in there and you get the rogue damage or the warrior damage going, like there's no way to build into them to do you can't make them
Yeah,
do like a swipe or a warpath or a vengeance type thing. It would be cool if you could have the minions build into like the harvest skill, like your minions could now use
yeah.
harvest.
I completely agree. I think it would make it so good. I would even like to see that. For example, it would be cool if some of the minions, for example, let's just say the golem, right, or the abomination that is coming out or something. It would be very cool, like if you expect them to have the same skill as you, when you use the skill, like the skill, they would also use the skill when you do it, kind of thing. So you could tell them to actively do stuff, right? A bit like I don't know if you played League of Legends, but there's a character on League of Legends that is called Heimerdinger, and he basically drops these turrets in the battlefield, which are like kind of like minions, and he basically has an ability that throws a death ray, right, like a ray, like a laser. And basically, when he uses this laser, the turrets will also shoot a laser, aiming where the character was aiming. So you can basically, if you have two turrets instead of hitting the enemy with one laser, you basically hit them with your laser and the laser from the turrets. So it creates this like kind of like gameplay where your minions are part of your build and they're not this separate entity who just like does his thing and is, I don't know. I think it would be cool if they just created ways for the minions to actually be connected to the player. Uh, and just make gameplay a bit more engaging. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of just minion AFK builds. I know a lot of people like it, but you just AFK and your minions do everything. So I would like to see what you're talking about. Just like more ways to make your minions a bit more active and a bit more engaging.
Yeah, that would definitely be more interactive if they use skills when you use them. So like right now they were using their base attacks like that was just what they normally did, and then you came along and you started using harvest, and all your melee ones started using harvest with you. Or if you fired Marrow Shards, that your skeletons would fire Marrow Shards. That'd be some
Or
pretty
for
sick shit.
example, you know how something similar to what the Beastmaster has, like when the wolves that you can use their enrage, they have, once you summon them, they have like active abilities. That would be pretty cool, if you could have something like that for the Necro.
That would be
Because,
hard. I know why they didn't do that. That would be hard on the toolbar because you're always
yeah,
recasting them, so it'd be very hard to like
yeah,
be able to separate it.
but maybe they can have like a same effect, but instead of being related to the skill of the minion itself, is related to harvest. For example, if you have harvest and you use it, then your minions use harvest, and you can have it have a cooldown or something. Like it doesn't need to be perma, right?
Yeah,
But I don't know. I think it would be pretty cool to have those sort of interactions.
that would be cool. I would definitely care for some necromancer minions to be able to use some of your skills, with the skill tree.
Yeah. Which to be honest, it almost looks like they were kind of like looking into that direction, right? You have, for example, that sometimes you see like, I think golems can cast free blood or whatever, right? You have like all of these like interactions, but they're not actually casting reblood. It's like their own version of reblood without the tree. I think that's such a shame. I think it would be so sick if you have reblood spect and you give your, let's just say you give your mages reblood. When they cast reblood, they are casting your reblood. Like I think it would be so cool, and so
And if I
I
recall,
would really like to see that.
I think
Mhm.
they didn't they actually do that with the mages? Can't they cast sacrifice and it's actually your sacrifice skill?
I don't think it's yours. Maybe it is, but
Maybe
I'm
it
pretty
might
sure
just
like
be.
her odds are saying it's not yours.
Maybe it's just their own version of it, or just the
Yeah,
base
I think it is.
sacrifice skill.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. Because if it was, it would be pretty cool. Maybe I'm completely. I don't have the experience to know this, but I'm pretty sure it's their own.
it might be their own. I think I tried it one time, and I think it might be the base.
Yeah, but imagine if it was yours, that would be pretty sick.
Yeah, it would be really sick. All right, you ready for our skill that's gonna disappear? Mark of Death.
Oh man,
Should we even
I'm
talk
so
about it?
sad.
You're
Yeah,
sad? Why?
honor. I love Mark of the Dead. I think Mark of the Dead is great.
Ah,
Obviously, it was part of my Lich build like a few months ago, right? So obviously, I played a lot with this skill, so I'm a bit attached to it. I basically, the thing I like about this skill mainly was the fear. Uh, I really liked using this fear manually. It felt very rewarding. For example, imagine you're about to fight like a fire golem, right? And the golem is about to cast his flamethrower, and you're out of position, and you saved your Mark of the Dead, right? Then boom, you use your Mark of the Dead on him, and you cancel the flamethrower, right? Because the fear cancels the channels.
yeah,
Or if there's like one of those spinning golems, he's about to spin on you, you silence him. Or you're about to get reached by a melee enemy, and right before they're gonna auto attack you, you fear them. It just felt really, really rewarding to use. Or you could use it in so many situations in a skillful way. Um, I kind of fear is very strong, right? But I prefer using CC. I like when CC is on player's control and it's not something that is just like,
a random on hit effect.
yeah, exactly. For example, I really dislike the perma CC things that are going on now with freeze and with shock with the shaman and the nova. You know how you can just like completely, basically the enemies can't move and you create this like perma CC status. I think CC should always be something attached to a cooldown, and that is like uh, player triggered. Like you're making the active decision of CCing this enemy, right? Kind of like on an MMO or like a MOBA.
I
I really
agree.
dislike when it is. I really dislike when it's just like perma CC.
And I have a feeling the game will probably take that direction more when the CC masteries come out. I don't feel like they're
Yeah,
out yet, so right now it's just kind of like, here you go.
yeah, man. And definitely, there's a lot of there's a lot of interactions that I don't think the devs were planning on. For example, now I've been playing recently with this Echo build on Sentinel, right, with the block and stuff. But I'm also using, on top of the block being absolutely broken, I'm also using the Echo, like the suck, that it pulls enemies into you.
Yeah,
And basically, because you're recasting echoes like 6 times per second or whatever with the recast nodes, the enemies they can't even pathfind properly. The AI can deal with, because they're getting displaced every 0.2 seconds, right? And then the AI can even deal with that. And for example, I think ability things like that, those interactions shouldn't be in the game. They completely remove perma CC completely removes what the game is about, which is like skillful combat, dodging the abilities, and approaching every enemy differently, not walking into archers on a straight line kind of deal. Um, and I'm talking about Mark of the Dead again. I really like the rune. Like, has nothing to do with the power of the skill, but the little rune the minions got on top of their head, I just think it's really cool. So
seeing them get that.
I hope we don't miss the. I'm gonna miss the Mark of the Dead rune. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is a cool symbol that hovers up there.
Yeah, it is a
I,
cool symbol.
I'm kind of glad that it's going away.
Why?
Well, because we get something better.
Well, of course, right? But I
But
wonder what they're gonna do with it. What do you think they're gonna do? Because Mark of the Dead is built. I was talking with Foe about this. Because Mark of the Dead is built into some of the other trees, right? Because if the enemies are marked, it's built on the skill tree. Because it's like one of the only courses we have and so on.
yeah,
You have harvest that you do more damage when enemies are marked for that and stuff like that, right? So I wonder if Mark of Death is gonna stay in the game just as an on hit effect, kind of like the axe throws, on the Sentinel, kind of like one of those like minor, basically like a skill without a skill tree. Like some skills are gonna be able to proc it, but it's just not gonna be a skill with a skill tree kind of thing. Maybe they're going to, I don't know. We'll see. Or or otherwise they just have to rework out the trees because, for example, Reaper form has Mark of Death, Harvest has Mark of Death, the skill tree has Mark of Death. Like, there's a lot of Mark of Death going on in the skill trees. So
I
yeah.
am 101. I'll go with 99% sure that all of those Mark of
Okay.
Death sources are staying in the game. I believe they already.
Okay.
I think it came up in Discord like the first day. I remember them saying
Mm-hmm.
that you'll still be able to have the on hit effects with it, and it's just going to use the base skill. So
Okay.
so
So
enemies
you're
that are
just do the
marked,
30% more damage, and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, they'll take the
Which
more
is still
damage.
pretty good, honestly. So
I think they said, and it might have been someone else mentioning it. It might not have been a dev that went from that point on
uh huh.
to mention that there may be a way to increase, like mark of death percentage chance on hit may be added to the passive tree.
I see. So it's just like a chill effect, something specific to. Basically, Mark of the Dead would became an ailment, basically, right? That's kind of like what they're saying,
Yeah,
with one stack ailment, kind of like blinding poisons, for like plague bear. So like one of those specific like ailments. That's pretty cool. I like that. I think it's a good solution. As long as we keep the cute rune on top of the enemies, I'm good with that because the rune looks too sick.
yeah, I don't see them
Uh,
getting rid of that.
yeah, it just looks so good. Like when the it's one of their best graphics in my opinion. By the way, bye bye, Mark. I'll miss you.
My biggest question is, and the reason I
Uh-huh.
think they might do something with this, is you have the Spriggan form on Primalist that can build root
Mhm.
walls, and those
Mhm.
those walls are very. Even though I hate the Spriggan, I don't know why, I just don't like it. I
Mhm.
do think that the Spriggan gameplay is very interactive. You build walls, you
Yeah,
protect
I agree.
yourself from projectiles. Like it's a very interactive strategy type gameplay, and
Yeah.
they kind of brought that along with the Bone Prison. If they wouldn't have attached a 20-second cooldown, which was just ridiculous to
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, I
but
agree.
it was pretty fun to build with it and play with it, and hide inside the circle or try and trap the mobs in the circle while you're on the outside. Like it added a little depth to it, but again, that 20-second cooldown just kind of ruined it.
I'm gonna be surprised if Bone Prison doesn't have an appearance on its own though.
That
Like,
that's what I was getting to. I was
cause
gonna say I see it coming back as some sort of skill that you can get.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Because especially with the heavy influence on Diablo 2 on all the skills, Bone Prison on Diablo 2 is such a classic. You know, like the Bone Necromancer that you could just like fill the screen with prisons. So I can definitely see this making a comeback, but maybe. And again, it would be one of those like CCs, for example. I could see this being very good, for example, for the PvP scene when PvP comes, right? If you're doing like a 5v5 and you have you have a sentinel jump on you as an acolyte, boom, you bone prison him, he can't follow you anymore, right?
Yeah, and
Unless he has, yeah.
then you
It's
run
one of
away
those
and
MOBA skills, MMO skills that we were talking about with like CC on cooldown. But yeah, I would love to see stuff like that. And again, this might not be the skill that you would probably use for PvEing, right? And like clearing arena, because it's not that great versus density. But maybe if you're having like a very hard encounter versus a boss, I don't know, something like Wengaris or something during the campaign, it would be pretty nice. You just put the Wengari in the cage, easy peasy.
yeah, I think it could
So
be
yeah,
made. I think it could be made into a very fun skill that would be good for both PvE and PvP. I
yeah.
see it coming as a God, I always get these back. It's Warlock on the
Yeah,
Mage, right,
yeah,
and Ruin Master.
I can see being especially with the bone theme and stuff, with Warlock being bone blood theme and stuff. I can definitely see this coming for Warlock. You're completely right here.
Yeah, and I see it not being
And
a big circle of bones. I see it being more of like a small cage that traps it, like maybe even
yeah,
traps. Maybe you put it on the ground and when an enemy walks on it, boom,
and
it sprouts.
I was reading today a very very old Reddit post. It was an Ask Me Anything with Judd, the game director, and someone was asking what are going to be the difference between Necro, Lich, and um, Warlock, and he said Necro tons of minions, Lich damage, and then he said Warlock will be curses and CC. He specified CC. So this kind of like is maybe it was all the plan was all along, to give CC to the Warlock that way. So we will see if we're right or wrong, in a month or two when we get Warlock, hopefully.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to this meeting and say we called it, right?
Oh yeah,
We'll
I'll
see.
say it. Yeah, we got that live.
All right.
All right, for one of the biggest skill trees and yet probably the most unused skills in the game,
It's so bad.
I've tried every pathway on this skill, and I tell you what,
I've tried quite a bit. Yeah.
I've copied. Someone else did a shotgun build with it, which
Yeah, I
looked
saw
really
it.
really
Where
good,
you
and
shot on the floor and it makes like an arc, right? And it covers the screen.
yeah,
Does some crit damage.
you take the Marrow Shards and you turn it into the splinters,
Yes,
and,
yeah, yeah.
and
And you
it
hit on the floor and then the ricochets like cover the entire screen kind of thing.
yeah, it looked great, and so I tried it,
Yeah,
and
it looks cool, but it just doesn't do that much damage, right?
yeah,
You
it
need
did.
the idols, which kind of like yeah.
Yeah, you had to build into it fully, and I even tried it as converting all of my leech into damage, so I had like 1,000% damage, and it just wasn't
Yeah,
as
just
good as Death Seal or at the time
yeah, yeah.
Soul Feast and such. But how much have you played around with that? Have you tried all the different ways, or have you just tried the splinters?
Hmm?
Have
I
you?
tried the splinters, I tried the range, I tried the double cast, I tried the crit version. I mean, I tried bleed because you can do the blown splitters bleed and the base bleed, uh, and then you get the hit damage on bleed enemies, right? And it just wasn't. I don't know, man. It's just
The one way I tried it is I got as much cast speed as I could get, and then I
yeah,
went
yeah,
for as many splinters that I could, and I believe you can make them pierce.
yeah, yeah.
I don't remember which one was it, but you could make them Pierce, and then what I did was I did the Consume Minion so that you get 100% more hit damage. Uh,
Yeah.
and what I tried to do was I used the Plague Staff, and I tried to get as many piercing hits as possible, because even when it pierces, you still get a hit, so that you could
Yeah.
apply as many stacks as poison as possible. And even with minions applying poison as well, like the Wandering Spirits in the background, it just still was not that good of a skill. And if you're not good
Yeah.
with poison and you're doing lots of hits, it needs something.
Yeah.
I will say though, what I do like about the skill, I do like that it consumes health.
Yeah.
To use
That's
it,
unique about it, then.
it really combined with like Nzangueus at the time, as a ward build. It was really useful as that. It was really something you could build into. But what I think it needs, is for its double cast chance. I think it needs to turn into like Lightning Blast a little bit, where
Yeah.
it does not take 7 points to only
Yeah,
have
they
a
could turn
90
this into
hits.
like a nice single target kind of like ability, where it's kind of like this kind of like machine gun build for like just like burning like anything that it touches in a line almost. But I mean, I think the particle effects are pretty cool. The ability is definitely recognizable. It definitely has a unique mechanic with the HP, and so it has potential to be a cool skill, right?
Yes.
But I think also I don't see a world where it would be really really good in my opinion to make this ability like an instant cast too, because I think this ability basically, because you kind of like have to like cast it while stopping kind of thing. It almost kind of, if you want to spam it a lot, it kind of turns into a kind of like a channel play style, right?
Yeah.
Where you just sit in a corner blasting. Kind of think it makes it a bit less fun. Like imagine if this ability would work a bit. You know how the new Ice Barrage from Sorcerer. If you could do something like that, where you could like cast it, just make it a bit more dynamic.
Yeah. I would
Because it kind
definitely.
of fits the playstyle, right? Of losing HP, being aggressive, moving in with Reaper form or whatever, right? Like it would make sure sense if this ability was a bit more on the fast side. Maybe not instant cast, but definitely have like a fast, maybe recast or something, or maybe I don't know, something to make it feel smoother.
I completely agree. The way that I would like to see it played, or at least have the option, one, I'd like to see you be able to make it Nova, so that it can fire
Mm-hmm.
in all directions instead of
Oh
its
yeah,
very
yeah,
small cone shape. Maybe build
yeah,
into that around the 10-point section. And the other thing I'd like to see with it is, like you say, as a cast and forget. Not
yeah,
necessarily a
yeah.
double cast or a recast like Abyssal Echoes, but I'd really like it as a cast and forget, like Ice Barrage, where you hit
Like
it.
ice thorns for the druid, kind of.
Yeah, and that's the other one is they had Hungering Souls used to have a really good chance to proc on hit, and I really would like
Yeah,
Marrow Shards to be like that. Like you could switch it to
yeah.
Nova. There's
Even
a
with idols, right, or something.
yeah, up to like a
You
thirty
could make
percent
you could make
chance.
like a pretty good build, right? You could imagine if you run an Hour of Decay, right? Uh, and then you build this for like and it casting a Nova around you, so you have Aura of Decay with this, and then you can have like Dead Seal when it's probably balanced with, because it's gonna, and then you can run like poison or something. I think it would be pretty cool. You have like this aura of death around you, and um, applying dots and stuff. I think it would be pretty cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I
I
really
would
agree.
definitely like to see that. So base damage up a little bit and be able to make it as a cast and forget and a Nova around you. Those are some things we'd like to see
And,
reworked
and
into
it
it.
comes down to, if you look at this skill, right? And it's basically a stationary, slow cast speed, kind of like damage build. So it's basically Ripblood, but the worst. Like the playstyle is basically Ripblood by the worst, kind of, right? So they definitely need to make this ability feel different to Ripblood.
Yeah, and I almost feel like they ran out of ideas. And if you go to like the bottom left, I feel like they started to copy Ripla. They started giving you these Marrow
Yeah,
Orbs. You have a
yeah,
chance
yeah.
to bring
Like,
back life and mana to yourself, and it's like, what?
yeah, I should be completely something new, something completely fresh, and that would fit like a specific, so where you're making your build, because for example, this build that we just described, right, the Nova around you and stuff, why would you go Replot on that build over this, right? I think you want this ability, so when you're making your Lich or you're making your whatever character you're making, you would be like, okay, what is better for this build? Do I run Replot or do I run Marrow Shards? Because right now it's like Marrow Shards is not even in the picture, so it's a bit of a shame. And if you make them the same, well, people are just gonna pick the one that's better. And at the moment is Reblood, right? So you need to make this ability bring something that Reblood can't. And that could be, for example, the Nova around you. This thing that you mentioned, that would just make it unique enough. So it would be worth it in my eyes.
Yeah,
And going back to the first thing you said, that when this, it's like the fact that it cost HP and it had such good interactions with a low life build with Exsanguinous, right? Well, it doesn't help either that Exsanguinous is basically gone, right? With the So I don't know. When they buff Ward again and Ward gets a bit more balance and hopefully low life, because I think that the low life playstyle was really unique and was really cool. I really like when games have, you can have HP builds, you can have protection builds, you can have Ward builds, you can have low life builds. I really like that. Because right now every build is just protections, right, and dodge, and I really
block.
miss having that.
Don't forget
I really
block.
miss having. Yeah, well, block is gonna get hopefully it gets a bit adjusted, okay? So I won't even mention it, but yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, I don't want to... go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I just miss having that option, but especially because it made skills like this one a bit more attractive. And yeah, especially for the Lich.
One thing that I'm actually surprised is not on Marrow Shards, now that I actually look at it in depth, and you brought it up with the low life build, is why is it that you can't get ward on hit with this at all?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's meant for a low life build, it steals a percentage of your health. That means that you must be running, a ward build with it.
Yeah,
you're not going to sacrifice all your health just to be killed in a five damage hit. But there's no ward on hit with it at all. You would think that you'd get...
It's crazy that this ability doesn't have it and others do, right? When this one, if anything, this one should have it, not the others, right? So
yeah, and you can make the cost even more. You can lose 10 to 20% of your health per cast, and
for nothing.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna need some ward on hit or ward on kill. Actually, I'm not even gonna say that. I hate on kill effects, but ward on hit, maybe even a percentage of your current life missing as ward when you cast it or something.
Yeah. Like an exchange.
It's kind of like teleport does, where you can convert.
Yeah. I like that node on teleport.
I'd really like to see that as a cast that you can build into on Marrow Shards. Like you can, it steals 9% of your current health and it transforms that into ward at twice its rate on hit or something.
Yeah, I like that. Well, that's pretty much anything I have to say about this build, this skill, because it's just like not that explored, not that great, and there's just better options. And why would you play this really at the moment? So it just feels like a very old skill. Also, it just needs some love, I feel.
Yeah, it just needs just at least one of the things we mentioned, or something new that the devs come up with, and it would be right there tempting to use.
I just had this idea because talking back to Warlock, it seems like theme-wise is something that you would see a Warlock using, right? Because it's like, again, the bone blood theme that we're talking about. So maybe when they make Warlock, this ability gets... maybe it's meant for him, and that's why right now it doesn't make any sense, right? Maybe it's meant for him. So we'll see.
That could be it. I kind of assumed the Warlock was meant for Exhume and Defile, the two skills that we don't have, or like Detonate Cores. I really think those ones they were saving for it, but I heard those two are going to disappear.
Yeah, Exhume and Defile, right?
Yeah.
We know that Detonating Corpse is coming, so...
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Eventually.
Yeah, me too. Just Diablo 2 all over again. I wonder how different it's going to be from Sacrifice, but we'll see.
Well, I think Detonate Corpse means that you detonate the mobs instead of your own minions, right? So it's kind of like
we don't have corpse retention, so how is it gonna work? Like, corpse kind of like just disappear, right?
Well, after a few seconds. So I think what would happen is after you use Sacrifice, you kill all your minions, it blows up 20 mobs. Those mobs usually stick around for like, I don't know, 2 seconds? So you have like up to 2 seconds to use the Detonate Corpse and they'll like re-explode or something.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess, but I don't know. We'll see what they do.
Or maybe I played this game called Smite, and there's a character called Epoch that he's basically like kind of like a necromancer, and he has this basically he has like a passive and he drops corpses. Some of the abilities he uses create corpses on the floor. So, for example, imagine Marrow Shards. When you shoot it, at the end of the projectile, when it explodes, it drops bones, right? So that counts as a corpse. And then you could use Narrow Shards, and then Narrow Shards creates a corpse, and then you detonate the corpse. So you create like this combo effect, right? So maybe they do something like that with other abilities. Would have the ability to drop a corpse, you know. So it would be like like something you would actively interact with.
That'd be
Um,
cool.
yeah. So I was thinking about this the other day. So maybe they do like an outwash, well, my adaptation. All right.
Well, Harvest.
The one and only. That was my first build ever. Harvest, Reaper Harvest.
You liked it?
Oh damn! Oh man, I had fun at the time. It was fucking trash now looking back at it. But I mean, I love Harvest. I think Harvest. I love Harvest animation and concept. Even if it's a bit. I just think the concept of having like a Grim Reaper, swinging his scythe, it's just edgy. I like it. It's my avenue. Like I love it. Right, like Bringer of Death kind of playstyle. I like it. But the problem is like it doesn't really do much, right? Like I like Harvest to be the melee go-to for the Acolyte. I want it to be big DPS, big damage. Fuck this dot shit, right? I want it to do damage. I wanted that I swing my side and I kill shit, right? And right now you just don't have that, right? And I think it's a shame. It just feels like it should be doing like it should be like a glass cannon melee super high damage kind of build, and with Reaper form, and right now it's just not. So I don't know what you think about it, but
Well, first, I like it. Maybe that's because it's like the only melee skill that the entire class has, and so like
mm-hmm.
you're forced into it. Um,
Yeah,
I came and played the Lich right after. So back in the day when I started, Werebear was like my first high-end build that I had done. It wasn't my first character, but it was the first one that got to like top 10 of the ladder for me. And back then the Werebear was broken. And
yeah,
right after that, the Lich became super good. And I went from
mm-hmm.
using Swipe to using Harvest. Very, very similar in my opinion.
Yeah,
But Harvest was hitting hard as a rock and getting attack speed. Harvest, you didn't get the attack speed. But what you did get, which really intrigued me, was this every 6 hits, you were getting this
yeah. That's what I
massive amount
used
of
on my
damage.
build. Yeah,
And it was like, cool, but it also increases the minion damage. But you're playing it as a Lich usually, and so like you don't have minions. So like that
Wandering
part,
spirits. Wandering spirits were minions though back in the day, right?
at that time, when I first started, they were still minions at that point, yes. And so we
Exactly.
we had them
So
going.
that's why you did that. Yeah.
But then right at about that same time, they switched over, and then Plague Staff with Wandering Spirits took over. But the thing that
Yeah.
got me was if you play Harvest as let's say you do Harvest as a Necromancer. The one thing on
Yeah.
this tree that I feel is missing is a percent damage increase per minion that you have. A
Yeah.
reason, kind of a risk and reward. If you do a 100 minion build, you know that your defenses suck. You're not meant to be in that
Yeah.
melee range. But if you do end up in it, if a boss chases you down, like it would be sweet if you could pull out Harvest and you do 100% more damage because you have 100 minions.
Yeah.
So you have
At
kind of
least
that
that
defensive set.
if you choose yourself to be in danger, you should be rewarded, right? At
Yeah,
least.
for having all of those minions, something that you could really bit into.
Yeah.
And then, if you're a lich and you don't have a whole lot of minions, the one thing that I feel like this tree was really missing for the lich when I played it last was one, its damage just didn't seem that high to like
Yeah.
be super interesting, but a lot of the things that you could build into, um, were just not meant for like the lich. So you get this reaper form, you go in, you're meant to be a melee build. Harvest is
Yeah.
really the only skill you get, and then it's like over 50% of the tree is meant for either dots or it's meant for minions.
Yeah.
And those are
Exactly.
things
That's
that you just
exactly my
don't really
point.
get.
Yeah.
Like I can give all my
It's like,
minions ward, and it's like, but I don't have any minions.
yeah.
I can.
I feel exactly like you. It's just like you're supposed to be this melee kind of like, and it just doesn't feel. I think maybe it definitely needs to better damage. And maybe it's just not base damage, but maybe you know how some abilities have like high how do you call it, high efficiency on added damage. You know,
Yeah.
so maybe they could do something where like harvest has like a, let's just say it has like a 200% increased damage effectiveness. So if if your weapon has 100 flat damage instead of 100, you get 200 for harvest, right? So it does more damage. And what if also if you're using harvest on Reaper form, right? You get like a bonus. So instead of 200 is 300 or something. A bit like swipe. You know how like when you're using swipe on the werebear, swipe gets like this. It basically benefits from both strength and attunement, like the scaling instead of just strength.
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe they could do something so it's actually incentivized for you to make decisions around harvest. Like, okay, am I gonna go full melee Reaper? Do I want to use it for just as a support skill when I'm playing with my minions and benefit from having an army? Do I want to use it for just like proccing more poisons and stuff occasionally? I think it's very important that we have all of these options for this skill, because right now it doesn't really do any of them. So I don't know, it's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, the added damage, the 70% effectiveness of that isn't too bad in my opinion. The thing that gets me the most with this skill that I really like is that you deal double damage to anything that's cursed. If you have Mark of Death on an enemy, not only does that enemy take 30% more damage, but Harvest will actually deal double its damage to that cursed
Yeah,
mob, which is huge. And if you build into it, and maybe that's why we need the Warlock coming in with all of its curses to really
yeah,
implement that, because Mark of Death, didn't last a super long time. What did you get on it? Like somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds.
yeah. 10 seconds,
Which
even
which
more. You can get it up to like 16, I think, with all the points.
which isn't a short amount of time, but for some reason it just felt when you were running a harvest build, you never had that.
Yeah,
And maybe it's just
and the
because it.
worst part too is like even if you do double damage, the double damage of 0 is still 0.
That's
So
that's
you
true.
know,
What I'm curious about it is you get the added melee damage. You get the one melee necrotic damage per point of intelligence, and I think that's not a base. I think that's just like an added on at the end, and that's why it doesn't do very much. I
yeah,
could be
this
wrong about that, but
yeah. And it's weird, right? Because you have this thing that it gives you 1 melee necrotic damage per point of intelligence, which is, oh sweet, I can get intelligence and do more damage. But then added damage from your weapon, instead of being a plus, it's a minus. It's only 70%. It's like, wait, why does Vengeance, right, or Rive, or any other skill, melee skill or swipe, any other skill in the game, benefits 100% from flat damage, and this one, when flat damage is the best way to scale melee at the moment, right? Flat damage, attack speed, and crit multi. Uh, and crit. Why are you giving this badass ability that looks like it should be one of the most powerful melee abilities, glass cannon in the game, 70% effectiveness? So you either just want me to use it for applying dots, uh, which is kind of like the direction they wanted to do with this at the beginning, but it just feels like what they want the skill to be and what it seems to be, like people expect it to be, is completely different. You expect it to be like a hard hitting ability, and it's the opposite, right? It's kind of like just a dot applier at the moment, and it's
yeah.
not even that good at that. You could just use replot and you can complete. Is there any build that is actually using harvest? You know, not
At
really.
the moment, I think I do need to go play with it some more. There's actually a couple things as I'm looking at it right now that I think I might want to combine. One of the things is multiplicative damage modifiers. I never used to think of as a super big thing, but
Yeah,
we've come to learn that if you have a really big base damage, that those
yeah,
multiplicative ones afterwards, I mean, it starts to skyrocket really quick.
yeah, yeah,
And what I'm noticing on this is you can get that 360% hit damage on your next hit, like 1 in 6 hits. On top of
yeah,
that, if you were to stack int and say you got like 90 int on a build, you just went full out on it, and then you got a really good
yeah.
weapon with that. If you teamed that up with the fact that you deal double damage to a marked enemy, so
Yeah,
you
that
mark a
was
death on them.
what I ran on my build, on my first harvest build. I went with the 300 and the damage on marked enemies, and that was the build. And then I just stacked the task pick with the Sovni and crit, and I was doing like 1,000 crits maybe, and then on the big crit sometimes would hit for like the one with the 300 increased.
Yep.
Would do like maybe like 5k from time to time, right? And it's like it's so much investment when you can get that amount of damage on any other melee skill perma, So,
Yeah. Were you running the 7 points and Symbol of the Loss?
yeah.
So you did have that. That's the 7 points. I don't think I've ever put a full
I
7
think
points in
I
there.
had only 5. I don't think I could afford all of them because basically I needed the 5 points on Skull Shards, and I also grabbed. I remember there was some attack speed and some crit chance, so I grabbed that. The movement speed on crit. I remember I grabbed some movement. Is there attack speed? I'm pretty sure.
On this
No,
skill
I just grabbed
itself,
the
I don't
movement
think so.
speed.
Yeah.
No, the attack speed was on Reaper farm. That's my bad. I grabbed the attack speed on Reaper farm. Yeah.
Maybe
So,
it just needs one more damage node then. Maybe that's what's missing. But
yeah, or even the multiplicative damage that you're getting, right? Just looking at it, the 13 per point. If you compare it to other skills that get
usually
multiplicative
20.
damage, yeah, exactly. It's like 7 points for like 70%, like a bit more than 70, like 90%, whatever you get, right? I mean, there's abilities that are giving you that amount for 1 point, right? Like 1 point gives you 70% increased damage or something. So, not increased damage, more damage, right?
Yeah.
Or if you look at something like Glacier, right, you can get like up to what? With a few points, you can get 200 damage and more damage. And it actually has quadruple effectiveness on flat damage. So it's like, I don't know. I just think like this ability just needs buffs in damage. Because the skill itself is, I really like the animation. I really like the playstyle. Reaper Leech is really fun to play. It's just like the stats, I think.
That is. Did you by chance run the
which one? Sorry.
The Elements of Death, where you convert all damage from outside items into necrotic?
Yeah, I did that too.
Did you? Yeah, I'm just curious on a two-handed like Sodna if you did,
Yeah,
added necrotic, but then you also did added melee physical, but you converted that into necrotic.
I
If
tried
that
it
would
and it
stack
was
hard.
good, but it wasn't worth because basically, well, as you can see, you have to put
The 4 points.
4 points on Harrowing Blade, and as you know, necrotic portrait is not exactly what you want to. You want to invest 4 points on that, so I end up taking it off.
Makes sense.
And going back to a discussion we've been having recently, especially on the forums, it's a pretty active discussion right now in the community. It's like, what about DR for this ability? Some damage reduction. It's a melee skill, You're a giant ghost team. Maybe dodge even. It's some sort of why would you go melee? It needs to have some sort of, in my opinion, being melee regardless of the class should make you tankier than being range. Because otherwise, why are you gonna play melee? What's the purpose? You can. So maybe they should look at that, and maybe, I don't know. It makes sense. You're a giant ghost. Maybe you're like a squishy illusion or whatever. So it kind of makes sense that you're gonna be hard to hit, or it's like you see in these movies. You try to stab a ghost, you can't, right? Because the sword goes through the ghost and you can't hit him. So something thematically that would make you do more damage and be more tanky, so you can actually get in the fight, and maybe lifesteal. Give it a base lifesteal, so it fits like the Reaper playstyle with the Leech. So just something, something to make you tankier.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. They went with a lot of ward stuff in it, which is surprising because they didn't give like any of that to the Marrow Shards. But
I did that too. I went crit on ward, on the Leech, that you can get crit on ward. So every time I was critting on the area, so you were critting pretty much like a big cone around you, and you would get I could get like 3k ward or something, but even 3k ward of back in the day, so it's not even compared to Soul Fist and stuff like that. It wasn't even that great, but
yeah. So if you could have 2 nodes added or 2 different mechanics added, what would you add to this skill?
I would definitely. I think the most important thing even if I'm not gonna be tanky, it has to do damage. That's I think this ability should hit hard as fuck, basically.
So added effectiveness to 100%.
Yeah, that's a must in my opinion. If not more, I think it should have more than that. Because the thing I like about added effectiveness is that instead of just giving it more flat, if you give an ability too much flat, the ability becomes too good, even if you don't have gear, right? Because the flat, you don't need a good weapon because the flat is good enough to carry you, right?
Yeah.
But when you make the skill a scale with damage of your weapon and your gear, then it's way more rewarding because you go, oh look, I got this weapon that has a bunch of damage and it's a great weapon, like a Sofnia, perfect rolled with tier 5 necrotic damage and attack speed and all the stuff you want. It feels really good because you put it on and those stats that you really worked for are actually being valued even more than with a regular skill, right? So I think it's a way to make the progression and the skill power evolution more rewarding to the player. It feels like the skill is doing damage because of your gear and not because the skill just does damage. I really hate that about some of the skills in the game. Some skills just do damage because they exist. I really, for example, if you take a look at Vengeance, I think Vengeance, a lot of people really are on really big rants about Vengeance. But I think Vengeance is, if you use Vengeance without a good weapon, and without idols and without the multiplicative damage and so on, if you just use Vengeance, it does 50 damage, right? But if you get a good weapon, good idols, good strength, good attack speed, good echo procs, all that, you can make it do like 5k damage, right? But that damage difference from doing 100 damage to doing 4,000 all has to do with your gear, your idols, and your playstyle, right? It has nothing to do with the skill itself. It's all like outside components. I really like that. I really like that for skills. I really like when the skill, when you first use it, it's not that great. But if you work on the build and you get good gear, the skill has the potential to become something powerful. So I would like to see something similar for this skill.
So do you think one thing that could make it viable is if they added in, just like Vengeance, Smite, and Rive, if they added in idols that boosted its damage or its crit?
For sure, for sure. For example, I think you have this. I was using these idols with cooldown on Transplant and damage when transformed, right?
Yep.
And the thing is, the damage with when transformed, there's just like increased damages, right? And even if you get like a good one with like 50% or whatever, what is 50% increased damage when you have classes like Sorcerer that get like 1,000 increased cold damage with idols, right? Like, and their range also. So it's like, well, I think that maybe they need to make those buffs multiplicative, like the Vengeance ones, so they actually feel, oh, you find this idol and boom, you put it in and you feel like you're doing 20% more damage or whatever, right? So definitely they could look at idols, but the base skill definitely needs some love.
Yeah, I'm curious what their plan is with idols. I'm assuming that at some point idols must interact with every skill, in the game. And right now they're probably just. I almost feel like the ones they put out were for the skills that aren't super used. They were like, all right, you know what? Nobody uses Vengeance. We'll throw these in there, and they didn't want to do the skills that they knew were already OP, so that it made it worse. I think they were looking for that balancing act first. But I would like to see some harvest idols.
I completely agree, and also like when they made idols, like a lot of the abilities that they have in the game right now, they either weren't in the game or they didn't work as they work now. So I'm expecting, I would like, well, I'm not expecting anything, but I would like that for release, the amount of idols we have right now should be like tripled in terms of variety of idols, and I think every ability should have at least a couple idols that take you into a different path of using the ability or so on, and different combinations and so on. That's what I would like to see. Like for example, there's orbs idols, right? Volcanic orb idols that change the behavior of orb with the speed and stuff. I like that. I want to see more of that, more specific idols that vengeance idols, rive idols, warpath idols. I want to see all more of that for pretty much as much skills and as we have.
I definitely
more
think
than one version. Yeah.
I definitely think we'll have about triple the amount of idols by release.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I would also like to see, and hopefully they have the time. I feel like idols are one of those things that they can do relatively quickly. You just throw a fix in there. It's probably takes quite a bit of time for coding.
Too and everything. Yeah.
but it's going to be one of those things that they can throw in relatively easy and do the numbers later. You know, they're like, oh
Yeah,
man, they found a way around that. We'll balance that. But I'd really be cool if not only did they triple the amount of idols, or even make a slightly easier way to get them, but I would like there to be two ways to play every skill. So you have the volcanic orb,
yeah,
like you said, where it slows down the speed and it increases the damage. But what if you had one that increased the shrapnel and reduced the mana cost, or some other combination
yeah.
with it to make you build it a different
Or,
way?
or, or even simpler, what if you have the same orb, but instead of slowing it, it made it faster?
Yeah,
So so you could find the combi. Because right now, if you put too many of those idols, your orb doesn't move at all. And for example, that on arena can be, it's not that great because it means you have to get pretty close, right? You want the orb to move slightly, in my opinion. Uh, so what if you could get, for example, two idols that make it give you the damage and make it move slower, and then you get two idols that make it move faster, so they even themselves out. So you end up having, you could actually combine these idols depending on their percentages, to craft
the perfect
like
speed you want.
the perfect speed. Like imagine if the good speed is 60%. It's not too slow, it's not too fast. It's a and people, I think it would be so cool, right? Because it makes that feeling of, oh shit, like my idol, I have the idols, but I wish I could get one with 20% less, so I would get the perfect movement or the perfect combination, and it creates that feeling of really chase items and something you can improve, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, especially, yeah, I don't know, I love that.
and it also makes it to where it's not quite that you handcrafted it, but you've crafted, you've synergized it to a point with something that you can't craft on. So you've taken these
Yeah,
items that are static and you've made your own combination of them, which
exactly.
a lot of people love that.
And it makes also the builds different, because maybe the way I like to play Orb, right? Maybe I like playing with 70% attack movement speed, but you like playing with 30, right? You like it slower, I like it faster because our play styles, but we're doing the same damage. It's a matter of how we are playing the build. And I think that is just so cool that I really like when you watch gameplay. You open Last Epoch, and you could just tell by the gameplay what kind of idols they're using. I think it's that is just so cool. And you gotta be careful also with making idols specific to skills, because if you don't have enough variation, uh, imagine there's only one type of idols for orb, then every orb build would be the same because you just use those ones, right? There's nothing else. But if you
And
make like 3 or 4 combinations, then player creativity and player combinations, and maybe you're playing solo self-found, you don't have access to perfect idols, so you have a way to combine different idols to get like to get going till you're building your character. So I would like to see all of that.
yeah, I agree. And if you watch people doing any volcanic orb with those idols, they're all stationary or very, very
Yeah,
slow moving.
very
But,
slow. Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
it's a shame because it kind of, like, if it's too slow, it kind of hurts the build, right? Or because you gotta get close to the scary stuff. But so
I
it feels weird.
it does. I always love throwing the orbs down and making them chase me through them. That's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
like I love to do it, and then I'll
yeah,
transplant
yeah,
or I like to leave decoys right next to my static orbs, so when they go for the
yeah.
decoy, they're dead.
I
But
saw Bina. He does similar, but then he uses black hole. So he throws an orb, and when the mobs walk through the orb, he throws a black hole on it. But I think all of these things right now, you basically have to do it that way. Otherwise, you can't use the idols. And I think all of these things that we're talking about should be player choices and not choices that are forced because there's no other way around it, pretty much, right? If you want to
yeah,
get the orb idols, but you don't want it to be slow, you can't. You have to. You have to use the idols. So yeah,
yep. All right, if there was one node on Harvest or one section you could get rid of, what would you remove?
that's a good question. I think all of this, to be honest, what we talked about, all this, the Horwing Blade thing, like it locks so many good things that it's just like not fun. Because for example, Life Eater, if you have like an intelligence build, it sounds pretty good, right? Like if you have 80 intelligence, 80 is pretty good. Like Harvest grants you 80 health, especially with Leech being so cool at the moment. But it's also Elements of Death is also behind it. So if you want to access these two cool points, you have to waste 4 points in Harrowing Blade, and right now, unless they rework how Shred works, or they change it or something, or it gets some value in multiplayer, stacking it with other players or whatever, like it's just really annoying, especially because those nodes are at the beginning of the tree, harvest. So if you want to go that way, you're basically capped by those nodes. If you can't, there's no way around that. So yeah, those are the ones I dislike the most.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly feel like they shouldn't have nodes that require a 4-point barrier. When you're
Yeah,
limited to only 20 points, I hate barriers that are that high where you have to waste a bunch of points in something you probably didn't want.
unless they're
Especially
related.
if they're related, it's okay. But I mean, just as like a general rule, they should just never put it there because you never know how the person wants to use it.
Yeah,
Maybe I want all necrotic damage, but I don't want necrotic shred. Or maybe I just wanted, like, I'm not doing any necrotic damage. I just wanted the
yeah.
health on hit. So why would I want the necrotic,
Yeah,
shred?
exactly. But that's the thing. These ones are not related at all, so it feels bad. But for example, I like the ones, for example, on Rife. If you wanna always crit on the third strike, you can grab. There's like you have to grab like 4 points on crit, 7% crit chance or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then you get like the fifth point, which is basically like it's basically making the other 4 points useless, but it's like doubling it has the effect of you grabbing actually 10 points instead, so you invest 5 points, the 4 and the 1, but the value that you're getting is more that you are getting with those 4 points if they were doubled, right? So it kind of like that makes sense to me when the point that the big point that you're grabbing locked, like after these 4-point locks, is actually makes those 4 points that you invested better and not worse, right? Or they gotta be related, so it feels like it's almost like a double down, like, okay, I'm gonna put 4 points, and when I put the fifth, boom, the 4 points that I invested might not be as useful, but the overall benefit is worth more than a 5-point investment, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I get you, and
Yeah,
that makes sense. That's a hard one to always synergize in there, but yeah,
yeah,
they could definitely get it done.
but
If
yeah,
if it were me, the one thing that I hate about this tree, and the only reason I hate it is because I want to use it, but it's just not that good, is the blood sculptor. I love the fact that you can get blood wraths on the kill, but here's the problem with it. You only get a 60% chance, which isn't that bad, but you can only get one every 2 seconds. So what I hate about that is anything with a cooldown just instantly makes me never want to go towards it. But
yeah, me
your
too, same.
your trash mobs all come at once, so you gotta like try and only hit 1 or 2 trash mobs at a time so that you can get the blood wrath, because you're trying to maximize it, and I just don't like it. Especially since
And
blood wraths.
the Lich has a lot of this internal cooldowns and shit. I like now you have the lock targets on Soul Fist. You have the cooldown on Bone Armor. Like you have these internal cooldowns here. Like why? Like no other class has to do with these things as much, at least. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, if I go kill
Sorry.
if I go kill everything all at once, like I want a bunch of blood rests. Especially if blood rests were something that were a minion that stayed until they were killed, I could understand it.
Yeah.
But because they automatically start decaying instantly, you've already limited it with that you can only get so many. Like you can only get as many as fast as you can kill mobs.
Yeah.
But to put a 2-second cooldown on top of it, you ain't gonna get very many of them. So why would I want to put 20 points into maximizing that whole side of the tree for something that I can't really utilize super well?
When you can just get 100 words for raids for free on just using wraith skill.
Yeah, I could get 100 race doing that, and then take a different node that gives all of those ones 250% more minion crit chance, and just build into a minion different way.
Reflect. So with the chest piece.
Reflect is definitely the way to go right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep, that would be the one I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much, we kind of like agree with this ability, and it's a shame because I think we both like it. Like we both have played it, like we both have built around it. It's an enjoyable skill. It just like I think I don't play it more because it like I like playing stuff that is strong. It's literally the only reason I don't play Harvest, because it just feels weak. I'm a bit of a meta slave, so it is what it is.
Yeah, it used to be a lot more usable, but patch by patch, they've increased the difficulty of staying alive, especially for melee builds, and it's gotten to the point where you don't have damage reduction, you don't have enough armor and protections as a lich. You just can't be in that melee range at the moment. So I expect
I
some big
mean,
changes coming, but
I think the Lich is completely fucked right now. Like if it wasn't like a lot of people, I think a lot of people have this perception of Lich being like the best character in the game because of Dead Seal, right? But let's be honest, if Dead Seal wasn't in the game, right? What do you do on Lich even? Like on
I do like the
just like
fact that it gets that free life in Reaper form, and I do feel like they tried to make the
yeah, but
defense based around how much you could leech. But the problem with that is that they even nerfed that a bit, where leech probably about 3 or 4 patches ago now, leech took a
yeah,
huge hit, and then on top of that, now Reaper form degens even faster. So
yeah.
it's just gotten to a point where it's like, all right, it's getting effed over.
Yeah. I think Lich is, in my opinion, Lich. If it wasn't for the Dead Seal bug, Lich is by far the worst class in the game, in my opinion. But
I think
that's
that if Harvest did about 2 to 3 times the damage it did right now, that you could stay
yeah,
in Reaper much easier, you'd leech more life, it'd be more
yeah,
survivable. Either that, or if you're not going to boost its damage, give the passive tree some sort of damage mitigation. You
yeah.
probably haven't logged onto the forums yet today, but we were commenting back on the whole block OPness, and
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that
Yeah,
that
I've seen it. I've seen it. I
uh,
read the
did you read that one?
yeah, yeah.
I would
How
really
other
like
classes should be able to access block and stuff.
yeah, I mean every class gets access to dodge, and you can build into 80% dodge on any class.
Yeah,
I don't see why you can't get above 33%. Well, technically you can get 48 with a great shield, but I don't see why you can't build
yeah,
into it at all on other skills, or at least
yeah, yeah.
block
I agree.
effectiveness.
Yeah,
But that's a whole nother thing.
but
You're
then they would have to balance block even more. So
yeah,
yeah,
and it's not even super broken on Sentinel. If you removed the Forge Guard that gave you the flat protections on it, and you removed or at least
it's
reduced the 70 life and 20 ward that you get on block, would it still be as good?
yes, because for example, it still works. For example, for necrotic, just try to think of any class that can get 30,000 necrotic protection,
Well, it works if you get
because
the
that's what block
3,000.
does.
You get the 3,000 necrotic protection when it's moved over, but if you weren't getting the flat protections and you got on a dot, you'd still get hit pretty hard for
Yeah, but
that.
there's no necrotic dots, right? So just death screech, and you should never get hit by death screech.
Some of
So
us like
it
to
basically
stand right
makes,
in it.
huh?
I like to stand right in a death screech.
Yeah, well, I mean, I sometimes do it, but sometimes I regret it, you know. So I think I'm a bit tankier than that I should. But
Yeah,
yeah, well, that's a different discussion. But yeah,
yeah, and I do think that 5,000 block effectiveness is too high, but
yep.
yeah, another discussion.
Yeah, wandering spirits or what? Yeah.
Yep, that's the next one.
Ooh.
Our
Uh,
our most abused
I
skill.
I like it. Okay, I'm gonna say it now. I like wandering spirits. Uh, I think the top of the tree and the bottom. I don't know what the top of the tree and the left side of the tree does. I always take the good stuff, right? But I think it's cool. I think the animation looks cool. Um, I think wandering spirits is really strong, right? But I don't know. I think a lot of people, uh, because it can hit and it can apply plague bringer and so on. I think a lot of people think like poison is super broken and wandering spirits is super broken, and it kind of is until a point, right? I always say this, like when I'm on Vision stream or whatever, and they're doing the tournaments and they have to play Lich. I always say, well, I just play Wandering Spirits, 3 200 waves, pretty much, right? Because it has the damage to just do 200 waves on its own. But then after that, it just kind of like falls off, in my opinion, just because you can't stay alive as a Lich. And if it wasn't for Dead Seal, and your version of Dead Seal with poison, I don't think there would be a single like poison build on the top of the ladder anyway. So yeah, poison is great when you don't have damage and you switch to Plague Bear and suddenly you're like fragging. So I don't know. I like this ability. I like the bottom of the tree. I like the poison part of the tree, and to be honest, if they nerf this skill from Lich and they fix that skill, what does Lich have? So I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's so. I think it's alright. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it, and I think, God, it's hard to say, but I really do think they're gonna just leave it alone with where it's at. I think the little nerf
Mm-hmm.
they did with it on the last patch, where they made it to where um, there's only a 40% chance for them to cast their Putrents every second instead of a 100% chance. So
Yeah.
basically, they attack 60% slower from
Yeah.
range. I think that was the biggest nerf that it's gonna see. Um,
Yeah.
Other than the
That's
fact
pretty
that
big.
it was a big nerf for it. It was needed, but that was only because when teamed up with enough percent poison on hit and they count as an extension of you, it was pretty bad. I mean, if you have 40 minions that can apply your poison chance on every hit, that's a bit
Yeah.
ridiculous. And then when they put in Death Seal and Death Seal gave you an additional 300% poison, it got even worse.
Mm.
But
Yeah, but I think they touched this skill because every time this skill has been like on the ladder, it's been because it's been combined with something that was broken that wasn't Wandering Spirits. Wandering Spirits always been like a support for example, Dead Seal, or when I was using it on my Soul Fist build too, right? And because you were running low life, you had so much poison chance, and because you were doing like low life Lich with all the poison and all that, right? And all the ward.
yeah,
But now that low life is not a thing and they're gonna fix that seal, I wonder. I mean, this skill is still gonna be decent, but uh, the skill on its own, like it's really good until a certain point, and then it kind of like falls off. So I think it's in a good place. Honestly, it's strong, yes, but I mean, if you compare it to everything else on the Acolyte, everything is so underpowered that this makes it feel like it's super good. But if you compare it to any other like caster skill, this is not even that great. Compared to Glacier, compared to Meteor, compared to Lightning Blast, compared to any caster skill that you can think, right?
yeah.
So I definitely think this ability, while it's overpowered for the Lich or for the Acolyte, it is not overpowered in the grand scheme of the game, in my opinion.
All right, you're gonna think I'm crazy here,
Okay.
but I think that, and believe me, this is hard to say because I love this skill.
Okay.
I think they need to completely rework the whole thing.
Okay. Uh, okay. This is an interesting. I thought you liked it,
I do. I love it. There's nothing like
but
I love the poison. I love the skill. I'll continue to use it, but I would like to see it completely changed from the way that it's used. I love the spirits. I love the way they move. I do
mm-hmm,
not think they should count as an extension of you. I think that they should
mm-hmm,
apply CC more. They should be. I think they should be bound to like the warlock. They should be curses. I mean, they're ghosts haunting around.
yeah,
They should be doing fear. They should be doing mark of death. They should be haunting you. Doing CCs. I don't like the fact that they apply your ailments and do hits. Obviously, they would need to, but I think the tree would be sweet if it was reworked where they applied all the curses for you and things like that onto mobs
mm-hmm,
and haunted the
yeah,
mobs. They could do fear, they could do the mark of death, they could do whatever new
yeah.
curses come into it. Maybe they even lay traps down if you have a warlock skill with it or something to build into. Um,
Kind of like they just changed the battlefield for you. They're kind of like a twisted version of an aura almost.
yeah, they turn your field into a graveyard where they are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get you. I get what
It's
you mean.
haunted.
Yeah.
Um, and just take away the fact that they get your ailment chance, because I think that'll always be broken. I mean,
Yeah, I mean
unless
that's the thing. That's the thing, right? They sit in this spot that if they made them minions, right, which is what they were OP because they were minions, and if they make them a spell, it obviously counts your what you're mentioning, right? Your hit damages and stuff, and your hit procs. So it's like, wow, it's a pretty it's true that it's quite a tricky skill to get around and to balance properly. It's just like odd.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the only reason why I'd recommend that they get rid of them doing hits, is so that they can't
Mm-hmm.
do the ailments. Instead they apply ailments and dot things so that there's um,
Do you
no
think
more
people would use
ailment
the
chance.
skill if you couldn't hit the hits though? Would you use the skill?
Let me ask you this: if you had Wandering Spirits right now and it applied
Yeah.
Mark of Death, Fear, um, I don't know, plague of death, or let's say there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
5
all the
different curses.
curses.
If
Yeah.
if they would put curses at random or however you built into it on the mobs, all the mobs for you in like an area, would you use it? I mean, you have to think
Yeah, probably.
Harvest now is gonna do double damage at all times because your Wandering Spirits will
Yeah,
apply it.
I completely feel you. Yeah.
I think
I mean,
people
if
would.
they exchange the poison dots for all of this that you're telling me, I think it would be a good trade-off, and I would think it would probably be better for the skill and the healthiness of the skill. Um, but I don't know if it changed the core of the skill a bit too much. Like,
Oh, it would definitely change it. But I do think it
yeah,
would almost be more thematic. I mean, right now, what do you use
yeah,
Wandering Spirits for? There's one thing that you
poison.
use it. Yeah, that's what you use it for. That's it. Or
Yeah,
bleed if you went into a high bleed. But poison is what you use it for. I think that they
yeah,
should be used as ghost on the battlefield, thematically for curses, for haunting, for doing some cool shit.
yeah. That would also work. But again, that is kind of like
It's
if they take away the poison, they definitely have to bring something in exchange. Well, that's for sure. Like they can take off the hits without giving some of what the things that you're mentioning in exchange, right?
Yeah, and if you
Um,
wanted to keep Poison Branch in the tree, instead of this Putrets thing where they shoot this poison, give them a mini Aura of Decay. Give them
uh-huh.
something in their area of
Or
effect
just like
that
a flat chance, maybe just have 100% chance, and that's it. A flat chance, and they just apply one stack. That's it, right?
yeah, just a mini, not your skilled Aura of Decay, but a mini version of it where they go around
Mm-hmm.
and they poison once per second enemies that are in their circle or very close to
Yeah,
them on top of haunting and stuff. So you
that
still get
could
some
work.
poison, but it's not your 600% poison chance that you get every hit.
Okay,
But
cool.
that's what I would like to see with the skill is
I like it.
as much as I love it, I just feel like it could go a different direction and be better, or at least more thematically, in that group, not just poison.
Mm-hmm.
I've never built it any other way than just poison. Like I've tried the other ways, but you can only fear once, so the whole left side fear tree pretty pointless because you can increase their damage to monsters that are feared, but guess what? They only get feared for half a second one time. So what good does
Yeah,
that really do when they can only hit once every 2.5 seconds? Because
yeah.
they have a 40% each second of actually doing a hit, and it's only a half second to fear, and you can only fear once. I feel like a rework is actually needed on the whole skill itself.
Hmm. We'll see what they do, I guess.
I'm sure.
It's kind of like hard. I really like your idea actually, but it's kind of hard for me to take like a stance and really see it because I don't know. Because basically we're missing Warlock, right? And I don't know how the rest of the courses are gonna interact. Because I don't know. Because this thing that you're saying is really interesting, but it would basically make curses kind of like automatic with this ability, and I wonder if that's kind of like if that's okay compared to how courses would normally be applied. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Like
and
I think if
it could
yeah
possibly steal too much away from the work. But again, they could make it to where with 20 points in the skill tree, you might only be able to get into one of the five,
yeah
curses.
you have to choose one. Yeah, maybe you choose the one that you don't have from other sources, right? That
Yeah,
will make sense.
I'm
Okay,
sure they
I
could
like
find a
it.
way to balance it.
Yeah. Okay.
I told you I'd blow your mind with that one.
I mean, I still like the version that exists, but I do think that your version is interesting. So regardless of the version that we end up having, I think I would still like the skill, as kind of. So I think both versions they would just be completely different use, but I think they both sound good to me. So I don't really mind when they change stuff for good stuff. Like if it's good for good, I don't mind. I don't like it when they go from like good to trash, like a Soul Fist. All right.
We'll get there soon enough.
Yeah.
I
A rant.
and I agree. If they leave Wandering Spirits, and they probably will leave it exactly where it's at, I'm okay with it. I just think that it's
Yeah.
always going to be used for poison, as long as it's left like
Yeah.
that. And
Cool.
I like skills that have more options than just let's go
Yeah.
poison.
Or maybe you could have both options. You could keep the hit, and you would have to choose: do you want the hit or do you want the curses? So maybe you could use the ability in other situations, right? I think both combinations can live together. Maybe what you're saying, and maybe what if they are not compatible with each other? We have many nodes where you go like, if you take this node won't work, right? So maybe they could do something like that. So
it could
everyone's happy.
yeah, I could see that.
All right. My favorite skill in the game, Boardman. Well, not my favorite skill in the game. Definitely my favorite skill on Acolyte, by far.
Just because it's a movement skill? What?
No, because it's sick, man. Like, I love Transplant, man. Transplant. I love the animation. I love the theme. I love the sound. I love the versatility. Like, the only thing I don't really like is the 10-second cooldown on bone armor. Everything else, I absolutely love. I love the detonations. I love that you can go for the mana regen. You can go for the global damage buff. You can go for clearing pools. You can go for more cost, less cost, more protections, the bone armor, more duration. You can go for fear if you decide to, and you can select exactly when you want the fear. You can even get kill threshold if you and it's a 20%. It's not a bad one, right? I just love this skill. I think it's really fun. I love that you have idols for it to make it like it has dedicated idols, so you can get it to a very very low cooldown, like 2 seconds or something, right? And I love how it synergizes with other skills like Rip Blood, and the health cost is great. I love it's kind of great, especially you get out of mana. You're always gonna have the option to dash, even if you get out of mana, because the dash doesn't cost mana, so it's really safe. And I just love the playstyle of dashing. Sometimes you dash in place just so you get them the mana restored, and you choose to have your dash on cooldown for a few seconds just so you can get a bit mana back. And I just love the playstyle, and I think it's a great skill and a great design. I love this skill and sounds and everything. It's great.
Yeah, there is a lot. Everything that you've mentioned, there's even more. I mean, there's even the blood, the detonations on arrival and takeoff, the fear. You can have the blood minions, the increased minion damage. Like, there's the whole other side of the tree, and it definitely.
All of it is good too. All of it is usable.
Yeah, and I've built into every way that there is on there. Like, you want to try it, you have tried it, and it's all viable to where you keep using it. It just depends on what build you're actually running. And I wish you had more skills like that. My favorite node, obviously, in it is the 3 cast of Rip Blood from it. Which is just absolutely that, and the mana back. I mean, or a run for its money. But the triple Rip Blood cast is just ridiculous, and it reminds me a lot when they first came out with the new Meteor skill with Fireball. That interaction, the first thing I thought of was, wow, they brought the Transplant Rip Blood interaction. Like, they're gonna bring more of those to the game. Sweet.
Yeah, it's really sweet. You're talking about the mana reduction, right, on Fireball?
Yeah, to where you get increased damage, and you get free Fireball.
I love that too. I love that.
Those are the interactions I want to see more of.
And you know what I like about this dash too? It's like this thing that you mentioned, it basically makes the ability more skillful. Because, for example, with Red Blood, there are scenarios where you want to dash in, because you want to apply the detonations on arrival, and you have enough damage that the monster explodes, or you're not in danger. You could dash in place, so you apply all the detonations, the arrival and the departure on place. If you want to build you want to destroy, burn like a single target, right? Or you could just use it as a normal escape. Blink over a wall and boom, you're safe from wisps or whatever is chasing you, right? And I just think it's so good when you have abilities that, depending on how you use them and what the player makes, what is the decision of the player, the ability can be used completely different. For example, if you compare it to Transplant, well, Transplant is only good for one thing: running away. That's it, right? And this ability, the fact that it has the offensive component, the defensive component, the movement component, it's just such a fun skill to use, because every situation you're gonna use it different. Sometimes you go in, sometimes you go in place, sometimes you go out. It's great. I love this ability. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that teleport gets a rework based off of this skill tree later for Mage. But
The Nova thing on the teleport is the closest thing. When you use the Nova nodes on teleport, you can actually do that and kind of like use it aggressively. But again, what if you're not using Nova? Then you lose. It's you can always use the detonations, no matter if you're using Replot or not. They're always gonna be good.
yeah, the difference between the 3 Ripbloods and the 3 Novas on teleport is that the 3 Novas on teleport, that's it. You did the Novas, you might have applied some Ignite with them, but like that's the end of the skill. With 3
Yeah,
Ripbloods, you get the health back from Ripbloods, you get, the
yeah.
minions give you
Or the
ward.
ward. Yeah,
Yeah, the massive
yeah,
ward, you get the damage increase, you get the massive amount of stacks. The one thing that I loved about Transplant was the first thing I did with it with Death Seal, when I saw that Death Seal could give you what was it when it first came out, like 300% poison chance,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
and it doubled your damage multiplicatively. The first
yeah.
thing I said that I'm gonna do is all I'm gonna do is activate Death Wave, Transplant, and have it do Rip Blood and see how many stacks of poison. So you transplant and you get 3 Rip Bloods, which you can do double splatter. So you get 6 splatters that have this massive 700% poison chance per hit. So you've already got 42 stacks right there, and then on top of that you can do 5 detonations. And
Yeah,
those
that's insane
detonations
damage.
apply the hit. So you were literally almost doing 100 poison stacks on a single target when you would teleport right on top of them. So
Yeah,
it was guaranteed death. On top of that, you could do the 20% kill threshold to clear out trash mobs or whatever else that might have still been alive. But it was
yeah,
ridiculous. And to top it off, you can lay down fear. So you teleport in, and if they didn't die,
yeah.
they were running away, and you're like, cool.
But it's great that all of these are choices you can make. And again, you mentioned how, like with that, even though Dead Seal is doing more than intended, whatever, even when Dead Seal gets fixed, right? All of these things that you're talking about will still be usable and will still be player choices that you can make the skill adapt to. I love how you can Ripplot is just so versatile. It's I think this skill is honestly just perfect. Like don't I love it.
Almost
Like this is the
perfect.
standard that I imagine. Like I love this skill.
Yeah.
Almost perfect.
Yeah, you got bone armor needs a rework.
Yeah, bone armor cooldown in my opinion makes no sense. Just because, I mean, I wouldn't mind the cooldown if everyone else had cooldowns on their DR, but 12% damage mitigation when the sorcerer gets 70, and
Yeah,
like
it
just
needs a
doesn't.
it definitely needs a boost to its damage taken reduction, and it also needs its you should almost, I wouldn't say 100% uptime, but if you're going to be able to put 5 to 6 points building it up, you should get much
Yeah,
closer than what is it, like 4 out of 10 seconds.
and even if it's 100% uptime, what's wrong with that? Like what's wrong on having like even 20% damage mitigation uptime all the time? Like every other class has it way more, so why not Acolyte? Like why not?
Yeah, and
Like
the other thing with that is even if you could get 100% uptime as long as you were transporting, constantly,
yeah,
as long as it didn't stack, I don't see why it would be a bad thing.
and it's actually we say it's 100% uptime, but it's actually not because of what you mentioned. Because you actually have to actively like
Transplant.
transplant, and this might seem oh well you just transplant on cooldown. Well, you say that, but at some high level of gameplay, if you transplant wrong, you're gonna die. Because
Yeah,
if you
if
transplant, even if the cooldown is only 2 seconds, 3 seconds, if you transplant and you didn't see the fast tigers coming at you, like, and everything's on cooldown, you're probably gonna die because you made a mistake. So even keeping the bone armor up would be another factor of the skill um, to be considered in the gameplay. Because for example, I like how vengeance works. Because vengeance only gives you damage if you're actually hitting stuff. So when you're playing vengeance, you gotta make sure you don't have you have to go from pack to pack with your mobility and your reversals and whatever with your lunge. Because if you stop attacking with vengeance, then all your DR is gone, right? So I like that. Or for example, I love the new DR how it works on Flame Ward. That you actually have to use Flame Ward and time it properly, right? Oh, there's a group of axe throwers. Boom, I use my flame ward and I get rewarded, right, for using it properly. I like that. So
yep,
yeah, great skill,
yep.
great
If
sound effects, great everything.
if they were to buff anything on this, or if they were gonna change it at all, the one thing I'd like them to build a little bit more into is the Pool of Bloods. Um,
Yeah.
I just never find myself using those. I tried. They just don't seem to do enough. I know it slows enemies, but I
They need
feel
to last
like
longer.
make it last longer or do something interactive with it. I would like it that if you
Mm.
transplanted into a pool of blood, or if you cast a minion and it raised, like, so when you summon a minion, say you summon a blood
Yeah.
wrath or something, and you did that on top of a pool of blood, that it
Yeah, I
would like
agree.
get
Yeah.
boosted stats, or
That's what I'm gonna
something.
say. I think it's the perfect. The only thing that you lack on Replot is something that interacts with minions. What if the pool of bloods would buff your minions? Maybe give them attack speed or anything, really, right? Or maybe just heals your minions. So you see your minions are taking a bit of HP. Your archers in the backline or whatever. Boom, you transplant on top of them. They get the blood and they get like a blood infusion and they heal up. It's sick. It's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah,
Good
that
call.
would be the only thing that I would rework on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
cool. I think we've
Well,
nailed our favorite skill.
yeah, detonate corpse. We don't know, so I guess we're gonna skip it for the moment. We talk a bit about what we speculate, right? But
Yeah, we've gone over
ex-
that a bit.
yeah, Axiom again is gonna get removed, so no point talking to it, right? Because it
Yeah,
doesn't. No one uses it.
which
And your favorite?
this actually used to be one of my favorites, and then they changed it to a
Yeah.
point where it's just unusable.
Is this the worst spell in the game? Worst? We're talking worse than the spell. Worse than disintegrate, because I think it is.
Oh, it definitely is. I have never made a viable build based around Hungry Souls. I have done it with Disintegrate, two of them, but
Yeah,
never
and they
Hungering
actually work.
Souls.
So
Yeah, they do stuff. I've tried with Hungering Souls again and again. I just even completely maxed out full gear, straight hit damage, single target, 1,000 damage.
for
uh,
me, it's very simple. Why does this ability with 1,000 projectiles not shotgun? Like, I don't get it. Like, make a shotgun. It's fun. Like, what's the problem?
So the one way that it used to be viable, and I wish I still
Yeah,
had the videos, but it was back when I was first streaming, and the lich used to be at the top of the ladder. Was you had it proc when you got hit. You could get like, and they
yeah,
changed this, but you could get like a 35-40% chance, and if you added that while in reperform, you never had to cast it. You take hits, it would proc, and you gave it a kill threshold, so it would finish off mobs for you automatically, and it was a really fun way to play it.
yeah,
And then they
yeah.
nerfed it to where they could no longer crit, and the chance to actually have it procced went much lower, and it reduced your damages. And then all it was like, all right, just not even going to use it anymore. Um,
There's so many idols for them too that are kind of like you can't use them because the ability is not
yeah, and
what you're saying.
the second aspect is if you want to use it as a DPS skill, the thing that sucks the worst is that you cannot possess an enemy with multiple souls. Why would
Yeah,
you want 45 projectiles if
if
only
you can
one of
only hit
them?
with one.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I
make it shotgun basically. Make it like fireball. Make it so it can like maybe you need to take the node for it or whatever. Make it so all my projectiles can hit the one guy, and that's it.
yeah, that's the one
And
node that's
and if it
missing.
gets a bit too crazy with almonds, right? Because your people are applying way too much poison or whatever, you can always give it the warpath treatment. Make it apply almonds at like 50% rate or whatever, and that's it, right? And but right now it feels horrible. You shoot 20 balls. That, by the way, they look pretty sick. The ability visuals are actually pretty cool,
Oh
right?
yeah, and it's one of their first skills. It looks amazing on the
Yeah.
website. Like you look at it, oh sweet, I want to try that. Throw schools and everything, and then
And,
you try it
and
and
this
you're like,
ability is
oh,
Diablo 2 Teeth, basically. You remember Teeth from Diablo 2?
yep,
And Teeth could shotgun, right? So it's like, and that was Teeth why it was used, right? You would get close and your teeth, and so you could actually have player control. Like, okay, do I want to get closer to this enemy and be in danger in order to get more DPS because I know I'm gonna be able to hit with all my projectiles, right?
yep,
Um. So yeah, I don't know. This ability just feels like it's old. It's just, in my opinion, just needs on the core of the skill needs to be the same, but the nodes itself, I don't think a single node can stay. Like all of these nodes need like a treatment. Uh, I hate how there's like you can tell in a lot of their early designs, there's a lot of like negative stuff. Okay, you get like more base damage, but you're losing projectiles and stuff like that. This ability just needs some love.
Yeah, and it made sense in the beginning when they did that. They didn't want anything power creeping up.
Yeah, exactly.
But the
But right
problem,
now, at the state of the game, this ability is just like, I don't know, definitely needs some love.
yeah, when I built this, I was just playing around one day. It was live stream, and I wanted to make it do as much hit damage as possible, right? So I'm running my Necro build, and I've got health convert or leech converted to extra damage, so we have like 1,000% necro damage. So already this thing should be hitting hard, right? You got 1,000% damage. Nah, it's hitting for like 120 damage. So
exactly.
it's already horrible. So we're like, all right, you know what? We'll go single target. We built into it. We got rid of all extra projectiles. We made it have 150% more hit damage, 100% size. We went up to the Great Soul. We got another 100% hit damage. We converted it to fire to where we had another 50%.
I tried that. It was so bad.
Did you try? Yeah. And so we got all those in our hit damage. We're still only doing like a 500 crit. So the last thing was I built into the necros, and your soul hits do more damage. You get another 100% hit damage if you have at least one minion, and I've got 100. So I'm like, all right. And then we went to the hit damage per minion. You can get 6% more hit damage per minion. Now I was only running wraths, so I had about 70 of them at the time, but we were looking at a 400% increase of damage right here in these 3 points.
Everything like what 700 crits maximum.
We critted our max crit that we got out of it was 2k, but your crit chance was low, so it didn't happen very often. But 2k for something that took that much, you had to have 70 minions, and you had to have it spec'd into just being a single target.
You could just use lightning blast and crit the entire an enemy 20 times per second for 4,000.
4,000 each, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like 20 times per second, or glacier, and just crit the entire screen for 7k. So it's like.
Yeah, so if you build into single target damage that hard and you still can't make it work, you need to be able to hit the same target with multiple projectiles.
Again, I'm pretty certain this ability is gonna get some sort of. There's no way this is gonna stay like this, right? It's an old skill. It just needs some love, and just don't use it at the moment. Basically, if you're listening to this, don't.
Yeah, I think they need to split it. I mean, obviously, more ideas I would welcome, and they'll probably do multiple ways. But right now, if it were me to change it instantly for the next batch, I would split it in half. I would have half the tree for on-hit effects, so when you get hit, there's a chance for it to go off, and you could build into that half. And the other half would be multiple projectiles, getting more of them, and having them have the ability to hit the same target. And maybe even put points into it where 2 are allowed to hit, then 4 are allowed to hit, or you could build into it. And for each one you built into, it reduced the effectiveness of ailments, your percentage. You could have 2 hit the same target, but you had 90% ailment, effectiveness against those hit targets.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd get rid of the whole single target. Nobody wants one hungering soul going around.
Yeah.
Especially when my favorite, I laughed.
The identity of the skill is having multiple projectiles anyway, so just keep that and make it good.
My favorite part of it was that you have a chance. You have a chance to be granted mana on kill. 10%. 10% chance to be granted mana on kill when this thing was only hitting for a maximum 2k
I hate
crit.
all these chances anyway. Every time I see something that is not 100% chance, I'm like, fuck this shit. Like, either if I'm gonna invest 10 points in something, it better be 100%,
Yeah.
Like,
Yep. Yeah, so anyways, rework.
Yeah. Next, there's a lot of things that I think rework material here.
All right, time for my favorite minion in the game. Not companion, favorite minion.
Okay.
The summon
I like the town.
Bone Golem.
Yeah. I like golems. I tried them on the hardcore tournament. I died, but still. I really like the Tower of Bones. The threat granted. I think that was very useful, especially when leveling up and playing on hardcore, because you could really feel having it an effect. And I think it would be really cool if the fragments of the fallen, the armor and protections, like just stayed a bit longer. Like I kind of like hate when you have like these buffs that only last 10 seconds or 15 seconds for something that is supposed to be in the battlefield for a long time for you.
It always
I think
confused me
yeah. You
that.
say sorry.
Well, I was just gonna add in there real quick that it confuses me that minions are all snapshotted off of your gear, but then they have things like this where it only lasts for 15 seconds. And you would think that
Yeah.
if it was summoned with that, because it was summoned near the corpse, it would have been snapshotted at its summoned. I'm kind of curious if those
Yeah.
protections actually last the whole time.
I have no idea. I didn't test, but if it wasn't anyway, if it worked as intended, it's all odd. And if it's not working as intended, well, they probably need to look into it, right?
Yeah,
So it does. So
but I
so
agree.
regardless, pretty weird.
I agree that 15
And again,
seconds is
the
way too
blood
short.
golem thing that we talked about, right? That blood golems can cast red blood. Well, it's not your red blood, so if it was your red blood, it would be pretty fucking sick. Like I think, and I don't think it would be OP either. Like it would just be, it feel good, because they would cast red blood with the blood splatters and with all that, right? And I think it would be pretty, and they could heal themselves and all that. So yeah. I don't know. I think golems are cool. I think they already announced that golem is getting reworked, right? They already said it.
Yeah.
So again, at the current state, though, I think that the good thing about it is basically the taunt, and we'll see what they do with it. What do you expect from it? What would you like to be the rework focused?
There's quite a few things, and unfortunately, I don't know what direction they're going to take with it. One thing
Mm-hmm.
that I would like is there needs to be more than one type of golem skill.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like in Diablo 2, basically.
Yeah, so there are a couple in this. I mean, you can split it in half. You can get the fire golem. There is also a spectral golem, but you can't like I think like all three golems should be their own skill tree.
Yeah.
You should have one golem that's made for being a threat, a threat tank that gives buff. The fire
And you
golem
should be
should
able
be
to
its
have
own
all of
skill.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, and have all of them active if that's what you want to waste three of your
Yeah,
specialization
golem
slots
build.
on.
You have 4 golems, and you just or go around with your golems. That would
Yeah.
be pretty sick.
Um, and I think they should also be allowed to have more than one. I do know, like it would be OP if you could have an unlimited number of golems. But when you have to, just to have two, you're splitting their damage and their size in half, so they no longer have that threat. I feel like that's a big loss. Like it's hard to play that way.
Well, having 5 golems seems reasonable to me. Like 2 or something like that, 4 or 5 golems would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I would go for that. And also on a rework, um, the one thing I hate about the golem, he's so goddamn slow. Like they're supposed to be. I get it. They're a tank. They're slow. But man, have you ever watched them attack? Most of the mobs in the game,
Yeah.
especially at the higher waves, are gone. They're not even on the screen anymore by the time the golem's brought his fist down. Like it's almost pointless.
I know 11-hour games are against this. I know they specifically said they don't want this in the game, but I think it would make sense if some of your bigger summons, right, like golems, maybe not raids, not skeletons, but like some of the big boy summons, it would be cool if they would have something similar to what they have. You know how like wolves can leap with you, right, or for the Beastmaster. I think it would be pretty cool if you could, for example, somehow give your golems the ability to transplant with you when you transplant or something like that, or to reposition them and to make sure they keep track with you, right? A bit of how a more moderate version of what Enigma was on Diablo 2, how you would like just teleport with your mobs. I know they don't want this specifically in general to teleport with mobs because they want to slow down the game and so on, right? But it would be a good idea, I think, to give golems. Maybe they could dash when you transplant. They do like a dash, like a charge or something. I don't know. But I don't know. So they could just keep up with you teleporting around Monolith, because it's what you're saying. They're just so slow.
That's actually that's super interesting. I almost feel like they could base an entire skill around that. A skill that's made that you could specialize into that would be
golem charge or something. Yeah.
Yeah, when you use it, it actually brings all of your minions to wherever you target it. All of your minions go there, and you could spec into the skill, and it gives them buffs or it gives them
Yeah,
something that you could build into like more
like a
damage for
dark
5 seconds.
portal, kind of like, yeah.
That actually be pretty cool.
Hmm. But
Might be a
I don't
little
think
OP.
they will ever do full minions because I'm pretty sure well they don't want the entire minions, but at least golems, at least the ones that are companions kind of thing, like. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, or very minimum. Um, I like how there's an increased movement speed, but it's only
Yeah,
for nearby um,
yeah,
for nearby minions. It says the bonus is
yeah,
doubled for themselves, but that double bonus that it gives themselves, like they don't actually move. Like
yeah,
40% move speed on top of zero is still zero.
yeah, yeah. Basically, well, we'll see what they do with it, I guess. And from an old skill, I guess, to a very new one. You like this one, right?
Spirit Plague.
Uh huh.
I haven't played with it too much. I've used it a couple of times. It's
I know
fun.
Fo loves it. Fo loves it, but
It's one of Foe's favorites, that's for sure.
yeah,
When I used it for just putting stacks of ailments on as fast as
yeah.
possible.
And the fear, right? Didn't you use the
And
fear?
yeah, and the fear. That's what we were doing with it. The fear and the
Yeah.
spread.
I haven't played too much around it. Like again, I don't know. It's very hard for me to grasp the strength of this skill because I have only seen used to success in combination with Dead Seal, right? So
Yeah,
I wonder what this skill will do. Um, when Dead Seal is adjusted. Uh,
I think
'Cause
it'll
again,
still do all right.
it kind of feels like they kind of like they want you to curse and be like it almost feels like they want the skill to be some sort of like a support skill, right? Like a curse support. They don't want it to be like a full on. This is not gonna be your main damage. This is gonna be maybe like a reblood kind of like ability, right? Like where you just have it there and it has some cool effects that help your other skills get better. So again, I don't know. We'll see what they do. Um, um, it's a very odd skill. It has a lot of weird interactions and a lot of weird things. I think the fear is definitely good.
Yeah,
Um,
the fear on it is good. The slow on it, the global damage over time increases that you can get out of it.
yeah,
The ailment stacks. It's got some good nodes in it.
yeah. I like the tree structure, for example. I think like you can really tell they learned a lot from. If you look at this tree, you don't like in order to access the different nodes, like uh, they're like thematically connected, right? Like um,
Oh yeah, they put some time into it. You
yeah,
you
it's
no
just you
longer
don't have the yeah.
there's
Well, we're
nowhere on
talking.
here. Yeah, there's nowhere on there that you build into something just to get to something you want that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. I think when we were talking about the previous skills, right? Like some of when we were talking about harvest and we were talking about the fucking marrow shards. I think this is kind of like the direction they need to take in terms of like the tree structure itself, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
The other
uh,
two key factors with it I see is they don't have anywhere that requires 4 or more points to unlock something.
yeah,
They're all 3 or less, so you can move
uh,
through very, very many different ones. And then on top of that, nothing requires 7 points. I mean, five is the most. So like
yeah,
it's basically just telling you there's a lot of areas for you to go and explore, and you want to
yeah. I really hate when the trees are
diversify
like
it.
7. Like it's just like even if what you're getting is good, I should get the same amount with 5 for investing 7 points. It basically makes it so only having 20 is like, okay, what do I can only get that. So it doesn't feel really good when you have to do that.
Well, yeah, and
A
especially
lot of the skills have that problem, but
yeah, and as you level up, the one of the main things that you want to do with a skill is you want it to be interactive and you want it to change. Every time you put a point into it, you want it to not just feel like a new skill, but you want it to either be more powerful or do more of something because you just leveled it. You put the time into it, you want it to do something. And when you have to put 8 points into the same node just for a 10% bonus to damage, it just doesn't feel like that. Like it doesn't get new effects, it doesn't get
yeah,
anything that's really cool. Fireball is like one of my skills that I like the most. That every point you start putting into it, something new is gonna happen. You're gonna have more
Yeah,
projectiles. It's gonna home. It's gonna cost less. It's gonna pierce.
yeah,
It's like it just all starts doing different shit, and it's really fun to build into it. This is
yeah.
one of those skills. Every time you put points into it, it starts doing
You
something
get
else.
something, yeah.
Yeah, you get bleed, or now you get damage over
Yeah.
time. You
I
slow, you
really this is
fear.
so important, especially because if you choose to while you're leveling, this makes such a it's such a change. For example, I think Glacier is the same almost. A lot of there's a lot of skills that they just feel very. That's why people like leveling with them because you don't need to have 20 points for the skill to be usable, right? And I feel like there's a few skills in the game. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna level this skill on arena, get 20 points, and then it's gonna be usable. Because before that, it's just like a mess. Because you need to get access to these points, right, in order for the ability to like work as intended. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't played much with this skill. It's a new skill from this patch, and again, the only performance that I've seen from it is from Dead Seal build. So I'm really curious to see what this skill becomes next patch. I'm really curious, especially in combinations with all the changes that are coming for the Acolyte with whenever Warlock gets released and all the changes to Necro. So we will see what we get from this. Really curious and really well looking forward to who knows what they will do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun one. It's definitely gonna be. I think it's gonna be a very good skill for the warlock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like it fits him thematically. That's for sure. So, all right. Well, the file is gone. So, uh, summon skeleton mage,
The good old mage. You're gonna go straight for Death
aka
Knights,
Dead
aren't you?
Knight. Okay, they should just call it Dead Knight. At this point.
When I don't know if it was like this when you started. I don't remember exactly what patch it was, but skeletons and mages used to be the same skill. I
Oh
don't know.
no, I never seen that. I never
I
seen that.
I'm pretty sure. I recall it happened right in the beginning of when I started playing. They separated it and they made two different skills. You had summon. It used to just be summon skeletons, and there were mages in it. I believe that you could
Mm-hmm.
put a node into, and then they separated the two so that you could have more build diversity. And I feel like they just need to do that again. Summon skeleton
Yeah.
mage should be mages. Maybe
Yeah.
fire mages, maybe ice mages, all
Yeah.
different types of mages. Death Knights should be another skill.
They should.
Cryomancers, that's your ice mages, so that can stay. But Death Knights, I mean, a knight in any sort of form, there should be a knight. You have your archers, you have your mages, you have your knights. Like a knight should be a whole nother
Yeah.
skill.
Yeah, I agree. Or they could even do something where a knights would be in would just be part of, for example, someone's skeleton, and you could get like a bunch of nodes at the top. Like you want the top nodes of a necromancer tree, where like if you put the point there, like your warriors are now knights, and they get like better or something like that. So if you're doing like a sacrifice build, you don't give a shit if they're knights or not, right? But if you're actually doing a summoner, like it would be worth investing into those points to making your summons like tier 2 kind of, or just like make a new skill straight up. But they kind of they also gotta be a bit careful with I think the reason they're a bit scared of doing this is because at the end of the day you only have 5 skill slots, right? So if you want to do a necro build and you want golems, right? We were also thinking about spreading out golems, right, and having different golems with different skill trees and so on. Then you spread out mages. You're gonna have so many summons. It's gonna be like kind of like your entire bar is gonna be summons, and you're still gonna miss half of the summons, right? It will be good for variety, but I don't know how it would be in terms of like frustration or whatever. But
Well, I don't think it'd be
I don't
too
know.
frustrating, because, I mean, if you think about it now, how many golems do you have?
One,
You have one, maybe two if you split it, but you have one golem. So why would it
yeah,
matter if we gave you four other golem skills? If you wanted to do a golem build and have more than one, yeah, you'd
it's
specialize into a bunch. But if you still wanted just one golem, now you get to pick which one it is you want instead of
yeah,
having to build through
yeah,
the tree
maybe.
towards it.
I just think it would just make the minion builds strictly minion. It would be harder to combine. You know what I mean? Like all your bar would be minions, and I don't know. I know people like that, but
I feel like as a necro, that's what it should be. You should
yeah,
either
maybe.
either go full out on them, or it's hard for me. I mean, if you look at the passive tree, it's hard to look at the
Yeah.
passive tree and be like, I want to do a hit damage build.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean,
nah,
obviously, don't go necro.
just go play Lich.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, you're probably right. Yeah,
I
but
mean,
yeah. The mage is definitely right now. Basically, the only time I've seen this being used and used properly is you turn them into death knights. You give them the life leech, and then you give them all the reflect and stuff, and you give them the crit, the health on crit, so they just like stay alive longer. And you can give them the poison chance also if you want. But basically, just use them on reflect builds, right? So yeah, it would be good if these guys really felt the mages really felt like mages, and the knights really felt like knights. Because they don't really look like knights anyway. They look like roguish to me. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like when they did split the two trees and they came out with this, they did it rather quickly, but I feel like they had a vision for it, and I feel like this is the blueprint. Like they didn't finish it.
Yeah.
They knew down the road it was gonna, probably get another rework. But there's so many little things on this tree that they did that make me excited. Like, they tied in
Yeah.
Hungering Soul. They gave one skill to like each of the types. So you got your
Yeah.
Hungering Souls, you got Fireball.
Which is what you were talking about that you wanted on minions in the
Yeah,
first place, right?
unfortunately, it's not tied into the skill tree of your actual
Yeah.
player, but it feels like they were laying the blueprint for that to happen. And then you have, you can choose what mobs you want sacrificed. Your mages can either sacrifice your rogues and your warriors, or they can sacrifice the wraiths. Um,
And this could make other skills have a purpose and a vision. For example, what if the pyromancers, right, could cast the fire version, of Marrow Shards. We're talking about how the fire version was like has no purpose. Maybe this would be a purpose, right? So if you have a bunch of pyromancers, they could you're not casting one, you're casting four of them now or five, right? With if you have all your skeleton mages be pyromancers, and then if it crits for 2k that you were telling me, well, now it's not 2k because it's 2k 5 times, so it's actually 10k and it's decent damage, right?
yeah,
So plus the ones that you're casting, right? So I don't know. They can definitely. I can definitely see this like being very interesting and very cool for the future. So, and we know minions are getting some sort of treatment, right? We know the new AI might be coming soon or later, but we know the new AI with the behaviors and all that. So I would assume that when they work on the AI, they would also work on the minions in general, right? Like no, they wouldn't just do the AI without the updated minion skills. I would say right. It would make no sense. So who knows? Maybe I think we might get the minion AI dispatch. By the way,
you think that's what it's going to
uh,
be instead of Monolith, huh? I don't think so.
no, I think we're getting monolith and the minion AI.
Oh, you think you're going to get both? I could see
I
that.
mean, we need to. It's there's if we're supposed to be releasing at the end of the year, there's a lot. These patches need to be big. You can't just release one skill at a patch and be happy. You gotta release mono. You gotta release warlock. You gotta the patches need to have like at least 2 or 3 big things, in my opinion, from the list. Or there's no way the game is gonna be released in 2021. So and I know Jad said on my stream the other day, and I think it was also on Vision stream. He said that older players should be very happy with this patch. There's a ton of like stuff to be excited about. And what is old players been asking for? They've been asking for monolith, right, and endgame, and they've been asking for minion AI since the day I joined the game, right? So maybe we're getting both. Who knows?
Lots of stuff, huh? I wish I was in that stream. I've
I
been missing
expect
a
this
lot of them.
patch to be huge. This patch needs to be huge. There's no other way around.
I expect the same thing. I'm curious what'll come with it. I think,
Especially with the delay and so on.
yeah, I'm really hoping there's some sort of delayed or not delayed, but new interaction that they're releasing, um,
Yeah,
like sockets or legendaries or
yeah. I'm
something.
expecting something big,
Yeah, some
like sockets, mono, necro, and minion AI, all on this patch. Plus all the stuff they already shown, right, with the sentinel animations and blah blah, all the minor stuff that they just like. Look at what happened last patch. They said nothing about the new bases, the new affixes, nothing, right? And that is basically changed the game pretty much. Because if you look at all the top builds, Like Shaman is using the new chess piece with the chill on freeze and all that. Sentinel is obviously using the conversions. Uh, you know, Sorcerer is using the mana spend on ward, turn to ward, and the extra, what is called the extra flame ward charge. So those items literally changed the game, and there was something that it wasn't even teased, right? So I'm expect it needs to be a big patch in my opinion, especially before summer. You know, you wanna make sure you make a big patch on summer so people are gonna be able to play it, and then on September, maybe you release like you can work. I would like to see multiplayer September, hopefully, right? So it will. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm super curious with what's gonna come out, but we'll
But
see.
I definitely
It's
expect this patch to be big, or otherwise I'm gonna be a bit sad. But yeah.
what's funny is this last patch we thought was big, and we were told it was gonna be big, and it felt big, and then when it came out, and you did have a lot of all this new stuff, it does
Mm-hmm.
seem like we went through it relatively quickly. Like it didn't
Well,
take
we also
long.
play like maniacs.
Yeah, that's also true. But for me, it just felt like, man, I'm like out of build ideas. Like the first day we hit Death Seal, and we're just like, all right, now
Yeah.
now the best one's out of
But
the way. It took
all I
one day.
know is I'm gonna be spending the last week of the patch or whatever we have left farming like crazy. I'm starting the patch rich as like I need to be a millionaire. Like I'm at 6 million gold right now. I need to have 20. Like I'm gonna have like 100 arena key stacks. Like I'm not playing around. It's really, like, because if they release something and I don't have resources, I'm gonna like happened last patch. I'm gonna feel really bad. And I started the patch with 10 million, and I still felt like I spent everything on the first day. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if too much. I don't expect too much gold stuff to come in. Maybe some new affixes, but I think more of it's going to be like skills and some new interaction. My
Yeah, but I
fingers
mean,
are
if the
still
necro,
crossed.
if I need to gamble, if the necro is very good and I have to gamble, I don't have necro gear, so I'm gonna have to gamble that, right? And yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
so we'll see.
It's definitely going to be necro or
Or
maybe it's.
maybe they nerf Sentinel to the ground, so all my gear that I invested is worthless, and I have to start from the ground again.
Wow, I wouldn't be
You know,
worthless.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Um, all right. Want to talk about sacrifice a bit?
Yeah, we could talk about one of the most. I don't even know how to get around this skill, but I'd say one of the most interactives because it's very timed, very. Um, you got to be very careful with it, but at the same time, it can be very very OP.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done a
I don't know.
sacrifice build, or have you just seen the ones?
I've done a sacrifice build. Yeah, I've done a sacrifice build. I mean, first of all, I want to say I like the skill. Um, I think it's very one thing that has nothing to do with the end game, but I think it's super tedious to level. Like once you get it set up and your minions give you mana back and you got your passives and your mana efficiency and all that, then it's like you don't really feel it. But the mana cost and the mana is really really hard to use. If you want to level with something like this or you want to play this without having the gear or the XP, it's really really demanding in mana and resources and stuff. Once you play endgame, I don't know. I think it's obviously in my if it wasn't for Dead Seal, it would be the best build right now for Acolyte, in my opinion. Well, apart from Reflect, but the Reflect is a bit on the bug abuse limits for me. So I don't know. I think it can be very strong, like you said, but I don't really mind it since I don't think Acolyte is that strong. It's again every time I think about Acolyte, it's just like I look at Sacrifice, I go, "Oh, holy shit, Sacrifice is so good," because I'm comparing it to Marrow Shards, right? And I'm comparing it to all these skills that they don't really feel that great. But if I compare Sacrifice to Glacier, they seem like pretty. It seems fine to me in terms of balance, or to Meteor, or to Nova, or to. It doesn't feel like overpowered compared to those skills, right? And it's harder to play too, I think, because you have to actually keep track of your minions, casting them, mana management, boom, bam, right? It's not just like glacier focus, glacier focus, glacier focus. So I don't. I personally like the skill, and I don't really know what I would change of it. Yeah, honestly. Um,
I agree.
what do you?
I like the skill. It has a lot of diversity. It's very fun to play
Yeah,
with. It's super interactive. Um,
yeah.
to me, I don't know if they got fixed. I haven't tried it in a while. There were a few things that are broken with it. It
The
used to
sound is
be
fun. The sound is fun.
the sound. Yeah, the explosions are great. Have you
It's like
tried
in Diablo 2. Yeah,
Have you tried the Blood Wrath version of it?
yeah, yeah. I did. Yeah.
So the mana cost. It used to not cost mana.
You break them and you make rats of them, right? And then
Cor-
you can detonate the rats, and so yeah, I've done that. Yeah, it's
And
really
it,
cool.
back in the day, a couple of patches ago, before they made it have a mana cost, it used to be you'd get a bunch of wraths, you'd sacrifice it, get a bunch of ward, and you'd get blood wraths that replaced the ones that you sacrificed, and it didn't cost any mana. So you could just it was a never-ending cycle. People were stacking like 30k ward, no problem. And then they introduced this mana cost, and it got me because the very first thing I did was try it, and right off the bat it costs 15 mana, but you can get that reduced down to only 5 mana. But unfortunately, I don't think the mana reduction cost actually works because I was still getting charged 15 mana for each one. If I'd summon like
Mm-hmm.
5, I'd be at negative 100 mana every time I used it, and I just couldn't run it that way. It wasn't working for me. I really wish that it would, it either gets fixed or the mana cost gets reduced because it is a fun way to play it when you sacrifice and get blood wraths. Especially if you get a lot of them and they have enough life that when you get them, you can stack your normal minions on top of it. For me, like on my 100 minion wrath build, or 100 minion build, how cool it would be to sacrifice all 100, get like 40 blood wraths, and then get that same 100 minions again.
Yeah,
So now you got 150, like, and
yeah.
you got all that damage from it too. Now you can sacrifice all 150 for like a grand finale. Um, the other
Yeah.
the other thing that I want changed on it, it's not broken. It works exactly as intended. Is the chains, but I don't like that there's no control over it. It's either all in or not all in. It's either single
Yeah,
target
I
chain.
agree. It feels bad sometimes. Sometimes the sacrifice goes perfect and it changes exactly how you want it. And sometimes you just wanted to blow up this like minion that is isolated there to kill one minion, and you by mistake explode the entire screen, and then you get overwhelmed by minions because you had no. Maybe you know what it would be good. Maybe it would display like the actual range of the chain. You know, when you aim at a minion, or you hover over it. Maybe they could have like a small like an aura or something around them. You know, so you could see the range of the sacrifice explosion or something. Some
That
sort
would
of maybe better targeting, or I don't know. Maybe it would be too hard to implement this thing that I'm talking.
it
The more
could
I
be.
talk about it, the more. But uh, but it would definitely be nice if you at least would know what is the range, so you know that you're not, so you could control a bit the chains. Because I do agree that right, it's sometimes, especially when you're fighting in the arena. For example, if you're fighting on magma arena and you're fighting around a rock, right, and you have like minions in one end of the, one on one choke point, and the other minions are in the other choke point. Your minions are like divided into groups, right? One up, one down. You
Yep.
blow up the. You want to use your sacrifice on the minions down because you know it's going to be enough damage to just kill, right? What is there, and by mistake you blow up also the minions that are up there, and then you suddenly have no, you're kind of like uh, trapped between these two packs of mobs that you. I don't know. The chains, and you kind of need the chains for DPS. There's no other way, because if you don't use the chains, you lose all the DPS because you wanna be all the detonations to chain. So it can definitely get some better controls and targeting and so on, or maybe just the range of the chains needs to be reduced. So it feels like maybe it needs to be like an area. The chains could be like an area. You know how a blood splatter has like an area around them.
Yep.
Like the blue circle display. So maybe the chains should have like that range kind of thing. Not the not so the detonation is based on this inner circle and not the sacrifice damage explosion itself. So it has like a one circle is the actual damage it does to minions, and one circle is the circle to chain to allied minions. If that makes sense, maybe that's an easier way to fix it.
Yeah.
Because
That's
obviously, yeah, I think that would work perfectly, because you would actually know you could actually make pretty fun chains, right? Like you could put your minions on a line like a domino, and you could be like boom, 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 boom. It would be pretty cool, I think. Uh, I don't know, pretty
yeah.
pretty fun.
That'd be one of the ways that I would do is instead of you have this node. Catalyst of Horde has sacrifice chains, so now that every time that you sacrifice one, it chains anything within its area, and that one sacrifices anything in its area, which is cool. But I feel like if you wanted a little more control, maybe add one more node branched off that allows you to just do a circle of effect, where it was just only what's in that circle, those all get sacrificed, it doesn't chain outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
That would give you complete control. But maybe they don't want you to have that. Maybe that's why it's set up as it is to make it more challenging. Um, which it does make it interactive. Sometimes you're like, ah, shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. And it's fun. But
I like sacrifice overall. There's not much to add. I think it's a cool skill. You have a lot of options too. I like that you could go pure hit damage, or you could go you could get this. I like the synergy with your minions with the bleeding, because your minions can apply bleed, and then you can get the hit on bleed and stuff. It's pretty cool. I think I want to see more of that. I like. We've been talking about this a lot today, but I really like when there's like skills benefits from other skills, and they just don't. They're not just like islands. It feels good when they're like all like interchange, and they all make each other better. So yeah, more of that, please.
yep, I agree. I really hope interactions between skills synergize even more to where you can start instead of just two back and forth. You have Meteor and Fireball, and that's really cool. But what if you had a third skill that was cycled into these? So you
Yeah,
have you have Transplant that casts Rip Blood, but then Rip Blood hits a minion, and it
yeah.
buffs them, and then that causes your minion that's now buffed to actually use Hungering Souls. Or
That's why I like the Turbo Vengeance build, because you have Volatile Reversal giving you attack speed. The attack speed from Volatile Reversal gives you attack speed for Vengeance, and the Vengeance mana that you're getting gets you more chance to proc, well, more procs of Echoes before you go on mana. So, and then the Echoes is giving you damage from Vengeance, right? And you create like kind of like this circle with these three abilities need each other, right? And I love that. I love when you make skills that if you take out one of those skills, the build falls apart, right? Or because you found these connections that make the build like really good. So I would like to see, well, just more of this.
yeah, that's a great synergy, and hopefully they tie more in where it's not just two skills. It,
Yeah,
it becomes three or four or even
or
maybe
four
even
or even
five
five. Yeah, I agree.
or six, and somehow you have to figure out which one's better.
Yeah. Or you can even have and you can even have six, because there's skills that they know. For example, I always use this example, but well, I said example 2 times. But for example, well, when you play shield throw, right, and you play future attacks with the Void Knight, the passives,
Yeah,
the future attacks, those attacks will cast, for example, smite, or right. So I just think it's so cool that you could actually have a build that has five abilities synergizing, right? You could have an extra skill on your bar because you don't need smite on your bar, and future strikes is also a skill, even though it doesn't have a skill tree that is synergizing with smite on its own. So you can have all these procs and all these skills like synergizing with it. For example, you can have volatile reversal giving you attack speed, right? You get smite with the health cost, but then you're using anomaly for the lifesteal, right? So you can sustain smite, and then you're using shield throw to cast smite, and then future strike is called. You create these chain effects, and it's so fun because you hit the dummy with this build, and and you hit the dummy, and you stop attacking for 5 seconds, and there's shit going on in the dummy for like 10 seconds. There's procs happening, and it just feels so good when you create like these chains without reaching the absurdity of PoE chains, right? When everything is just like a clusterfuck of chains. uh, I like this kind of like 4, 5, 6 element chains that are really controlled and really player driven. They're not automatic. They're actually, you're using the skills at the right moment, and you're using the right connection, so they happen, right?
yeah, and I
So yeah,
hope as much as I love those, I hope they get capped. Like I don't, like you said in PoE, you don't want to have a 30 chain where one thing happens and 30 things proc and it goes on forever. I feel like 5 or 6 is kind of like that cap zone. Like that should be the end of the chain. And then instead of, getting a longer chain, you should make the interactions better. So you take an interaction like where you don't have to have a skill on the bar. You have something like Lightning Blast that can proc when you have Disintegrate going, or not enchant weapon, but static going. So there's these things where Lightning Blast isn't on your tree, but it's getting procced all the time. And then you have things so you have an interaction like that, and then you have a chain on the Sentinel where you're doing Warpath, and then through your passive, its melee hits proccing an axe throw, and that axe throw now from your idol has a chance to do smite, and smite does its shock chance and its lightning and its fissure and it teleports you and things like that. You have that maximum chain, but you don't have to have that skill on your bar. So you have an interaction and a chain together, but it doesn't go on forever. It's just enough to where you can build it the way you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my favorite in the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Those two examples are my favorite ones to do. there's nothing better than having Lightning Blast proc all over the place when you're not casting it. And there's nothing better than not having Smite even on your bar and it's coming down everywhere.
Yeah, especially when those abilities, not only you proc them, but they also get better the way you proc. Because for example, casting Smite manually, for example, is absolute dreadful, right? But you use it with the throwing attacks, and it's suddenly like super fun. Unless you're using Smite for the melee version, right? For the dash, which is really fun. But yeah. All right. The Drain Life.
I saw someone streaming this. They were doing a build completely based around Drain Life, and it was actually really good. And I don't remember who it was, and I had to go to work, so I totally spaced it afterwards.
But channeling or
it was not channeled. They were running with minions. They were doing it as a necromancer, and the way it was,
that's what I assume.
It was doing some massive damage. Like it was actually doing really good. They weren't running Death Seal. It was just a minion build. And I think they were stacking like a bunch of ward out of it. But it looked really good. But I didn't get too into it, and then I've never seen it.
He was using the cast on the floor, or the. He was using the one with the crazy mana cost, or.
I don't remember. And I meant to play around with it.
Was
he
using Dark Shackles? The one that. It's a cast and it's not.
I don't think so. I think
that's
I think he was channeling it. I'm pretty sure he was channeling it.
He goes minions and then he just channels on top, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it was going.
I mean, Drain Life still does good damage. I mean, I used to. That's what I used on my build, like last punch, right? On the Soulfist build, and but again, they added 65 mana cost, which turns 75 with the. Well, more than that, actually, 85 with the Grasp of the Damned and Enduring Nights. So, yeah, I mean, having an ability for that costs your entire mana bar, that costs 90 mana, that lasts like 3 seconds, 6 seconds, sorry. It's, well, not really viable with any build, let's be honest. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with this. This mana cost is absolute bonkers. It went from 0 mana to 85. Like, I don't know. It completely changed the playstyle too of the build that I was doing, because I was basically using this, and you could like cast it, on top of you could cast it a few times on top of like a
Soul Feast,
like a boss or whatever, a single target, and you could do massive damage with it. But I don't know. I think that's the only way you can run this skill right now. You do minions and you use Drain Life as a channel, like while your minions are like holding the line, right? Kind of you Drain Life over, but I don't know. Yeah, I really liked this ability before when it was a cast, and obviously I was quite attached to it because I played it a lot on my Lich. But now I can't stand it, and it's too much. And I really don't like channeling. The channeling, how it does it work, where it you have to like, it's kind of like playing like a turret defense game. I don't know. It's not my play style. So yeah,
I think I haven't played with it too much to really dig into it too much, but what I would really like to see from it is it's channeled to be more like Avalanche, where it was kind of a cast and forget. It's not a cast on a target and it's done, but it's like it automatically, as soon as you hit it once, you have a huge mana cost, and then for like the next 10 seconds, it's automatically going to channel at the nearest enemy.
Yeah,
So as you
something like
run, it just keeps channeling, but you're allowed to move while it's doing it. And maybe
or like in an area around you, so you could synergize it with something like Aura of Decay again, you know. So
yeah,
it's like a big circle around you, like the size of Aura of Decay, for example, right? And that would be pretty cool. Like it's basically, or it would basically be the Leech Avalanche, pretty much.
yeah,
But
it
yeah,
would no longer count as channeled, obviously, because it would
yeah,
be
of
too
course.
unfair. But it would be useful. It'd be one of those ones where yeah, it took all my mana, but now I have 10 seconds to get my mana back and run around
Or
and
you
do
know what
stuff.
they could do? I actually this gave me an idea because you were talking about how it follows you. Maybe what they could do, if it's gonna cost me 80 mana and it's gonna be a cast, it should stay on target. You know, like it should, like, if imagine there's like a tiger, right? Like one of those Wengari guys that dash, the Wengari warriors, you know, the big ones that dash at you
Yep.
in arena, and you cast, if you cast Drain Life on them and they dash, basically you don't hit them with Drain Life, right? But what if you cast Drain Life on them and the Drain Life attaches to them, right? Like, so it's like you know, it's like target locked. Once you hit an enemy, it's like, and then while he's moving, right, with Drain Life attached to him, he's taking the full damage, obviously, during the 6 seconds or whatever it lasts, like, right? And he's also damaging the minions that are around him, right? So you could like pop it on a boss, right? Start casting your other skills, and as long as the boss still is alive, like he's taking damage from, regardless of his movement, he's taking damage from Drain Life, and he's doing damage to the stuff around it. That's the only way I could see justifying a 90 mana cost. Because right now you put no pay 90 mana, put it on the floor, and you have to be kiting and stuff, and the enemies are moving, so it doesn't even do damage because it's not hitting anything, because minions are not retarded and stay on top of it because they're chasing you. So I don't know. That's what I would like to see.
Well,
This skill gets me angry. So yeah.
yeah, I think target lock would be really nice, or the aura around you. I think both of those, or cast and forget, where it's automatically targeting, ones that are close to you that are as you run through the map. Um, any one of those I think would be viable for it to make it one be worth the 80 or 90 mana cost, and two make it fun again. Because I do recall when I took that, all your mana was gone. You try and transplant to get some back, but as you were trying to run through the map, your targeted locations no longer had mobs in them because they were coming to kill you, and you weren't able to leech any life because of that because they weren't on top of it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if they just. It almost seems like they wouldn't have done that originally. You would have think they would have intended for you to be able to target lock. I mean, you're trying to hit mobs. That's the point. They know mobs move and they're fast. I wonder if there was a coding problem, or if they really meant like it was originally visioned. Let's just make it target the ground.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, right? But I'm pretty sure this got nerfed just because the way we used it for with in combination with Soulfist, you could just like cast Soulfist and then you can cast this, and because it has no cooldown, right? Uh, well, it has like a 1 second cooldown or whatever, like Drain Life, right? Like well, it's not even a cooldown; it's like a load up time. You know, it's one of these skills that have like a bit like a delay, right?
Yeah.
You could just like permacast it with no mana cost, and obviously if one does a lot of damage, you could just like cast 10 of them on top of a golem, or on top, not golem, like we didn't have golems back then, but like a beetle, right? And then the beetle would just melt, right? And obviously they didn't want that, but the way they nerfed it, instead of giving it like a longer cooldown, which would have been fine, right? They just put on 90 mana cost, so now it's not even, it has 0 cooldown, but because it has 90 mana cost without with the casting version and the right nodes for it, it's basically not usable. So yeah, I don't know. To be honest, all the skills that we're gonna go through now, except Aura of Decay, it's like what do I even say? You can't even play them anymore because they got nerfed to the ground. So I am. I like
Well,
Aura of Decay though.
we can jump into aura.
Yeah, I like Aura because I like the healing of it. I like the CC that it gives you with the chill and the slow around you. So if you're like kind of playing like a cruiser build, you know, when you're kind of like cruising around, you know, the mobs kind of like like snake, like trying to not get close but not close enough so they can hit you. It helps you create this space where you can apply your poisons that you're still like safe. And I really like how you can turn the poison into something that benefits you and your minions, because it's really cool using Arrow of Decay to heal yourself, and to stay on, for example, to stay on Reaper form longer, or just to heal your minions, for example. I really like this skill. It's cool. I wish, I mean, half of the tree I've never really used, but the half that I use I like. So maybe it just needs more love on some of the other parts of the tree.
I agree. It's a skill, very versatile, used for a lot of different purposes. Obviously, mostly based around poison, but the
Mm-hmm.
minion tie-ins was nice. Everything about it is good. There is just one way. Well, before I get into that, it was bugged once upon a time. I don't. I think you might remember when it
Well, it's
was
still bugged.
when it would do insta kill. No matter, you could
Oh
just run
no,
through
that not
maps.
that bug, not that bugged, but it's still bugged
Yeah,
because
it's
it's kind of
it's
a snap.
you
So
can snapshot it and not even specialize and still have it, which is
yeah,
yeah a,
exactly.
a bug. But when it was doing damage where you would apply all the stacks instantly on a mob and kill it before you even got like anywhere near it, it was pretty cool. Obviously it's too OP. You don't want that fast of gameplay. But one thing
Mhm.
that I would like to see with it is for them to add in a section for some risk versus reward. So obviously
Mhm.
the smaller the circle with Aura of Decay, the closer you have to be, the more likely you are to get hit, the more likely you are
Yeah.
to die. That's when it should do the most damage. There is an area increase note on it. You can get up to 60% increased area. If I recall, there are idols that give you a little bit of
Yeah.
area, not
Yeah.
much,
I
but a
was
little
gonna
bit.
say you have idols.
But I would really like it to be kind of like Smelter's Wrath, where when you turn it on, there's a node in it that you can take that will increase its size per second, but reduce the damage per
Yeah.
second, or maybe reduce the amount
Yeah.
of
So you
stacks you
could
apply per
choose
second.
when.
And maybe to a maximum size, but say that it would get 10% more area per second for 10 seconds. So it would actually get really massive. You could actually make it take up the whole screen, but you lost, 3 of your 6 stacks per second of ailment damage, or you just lost 50% of poison damage, or you lost some sort of damage. So you had a little bit of risk reward, but now you made it funner because you can actually play a kite build and still hit with Aura of Decay. Um, it's the one thing I've hated is like you basically have to play a melee build to have Aura of Decay going, or you have to play a minion build and kill your minions off to give them some poison chance. But
Mhm.
I would definitely like to see it have some sort of risk and reward behavior. And for me, area versus damage was just one
Well,
of the
just
easy ways
maybe
to go
like a
to.
more active component, right? Is what you're asking, really. Like you could actually actively decide what aspect of it you're gonna benefit from.
Yeah, and
Because
maybe
right now you kind of like turn it on and forget about it, right? And it's just
yeah, it's a turn on and forget that it's even active, or it's a toggle, on and off just for a couple of the node buffs that you
mm,
can get out of it. But or it's a specialized and then get rid of because it's bugged. But
yeah, just have it on because why not, right?
yeah,
The idols also snapshot too.
for the area, do they?
Yeah. If you turn it on and you put the idols on and then you despecialize and pick out the idols or the idols that give you poison protection and stuff.
You keep the protections, huh?
You keep the protections, yeah.
That's pretty
Fo
sick.
told me. Yeah, so you get like 3,000 poison protections for free, pretty much. Yeah, but that's a bug. Obviously, guys, don't do it. We're trying to help the game be better, not worse. So there you go. Yeah.
One note I would like to see reworked in it is the chance to mark attackers. I really wish
Yeah.
that it would be a chance to mark the ones that you've attacked.
What? Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It makes more
I
sense.
I really hate builds that one you're not a very tanky character, so I hate when you like are
Yeah.
trying to get hit. Like it
Yeah.
ruins dodge, it ruins one of like the best mechanics that you can have for
It
defense.
rewards you for playing bad, kind of, right? Because you shouldn't be getting hit at least with that kind of build.
I
So
would be
I think I don't know. It's way better when you. I agree with you. It's better when you. I think you get stuff when you do stuff when you hit stuff because you're actively getting yourself in a position to hit and to etc. Right? So you were saying sorry.
I was just saying that I would even accept if they changed it to chance to mark when you block an attack. you know,
Yeah,
and then they actually gave the Lich some block because it's OP. I would definitely like that. I do think that the poison skin though, where when you get hit you inflict stacks, I do believe hits like that should stay the way they are. That
yeah,
makes sense for the poison skin. But as for putting debuffs on a character, it should be when you're hitting them you're
yeah,
putting the debuff on, not when
yeah.
they hit you.
The only thing that makes sense that you get when you're gonna get hit is stuff that will make you survive ability, if anything, right? You know, like you get hit, you proc like ward or something like that, like, or you proc like defenses or something like that. I can see that still being like some sort, some uh, like permissible and like makes sense kind of, but proccing damage stuff when you are the one getting hit when you're playing like a range, semi-range build or full range build, it just seems a bit odd.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, Aura of Decay is, it definitely has personality. I like that a lot of these skills, at least they really like, you think of Aura of Decay and it's unmissable. It's this like, it's really recognizable. It really has an identity, right? And I like that. It's just maybe it would be better if it had some variety and some adjustments. But yeah, and well, the next one, I'm not even. I don't know if you want to say anything else about Hour of Decay before we move into the Dreadful skill.
Oh no, that's it for Aura. I did my risk and reward on it. That's all I would like to see.
Yeah,
Other than that, it's a great skill. Once it's
yeah,
unbugged and once I
yeah,
think Death Seal combos have kind of calmed down, which it was one of the cool
yeah.
things about it was you would really think that Death Seal plus Wandering Spirits plus Aura
Mm.
for more poison damage was going to be a big one, but it didn't seem to combo as well as we thought it would. Especially with the
Mhm.
heal, you're in Reaper form, it's healing you for a good percentage of that missing health. It
Yeah,
synergized a little bit, but just not as good as I would have liked to see it. And I think,
yeah,
the reason for that, I think, is just because Death Seal had such a bigger area of hit, and you couldn't, you're
yeah.
killing things off screen. Aura of Decay really wasn't doing anything. They were dying before you'd get them
Yeah,
even
well,
into the
it
aura.
helps you stay more on Reaper form a bit with the sustain, but that's about it. And you
Yeah,
don't really need it since you leech so much damage with that seal, right? So
yeah. So maybe as Death Seal gets fixed, maybe it'll be
yeah,
better. But
it will obviously when that seal gets fixed, everything else is gonna need to shine more, just because that seal is not gonna be able to carry all of these other skills on its own, right? So yeah.
all right, so
Soulfist.
most people watching this already know that you're gonna be upset. One of your favorite skills, top ladder push, two patches in a row, and then boom, they killed it for you. What's the first thing? What's one thing that you would change on this skill? One node that you think would make
Limit
it usable for
the
you?
limit. Uh, okay, so this is what I think they did. This is what they did. Okay, so the problem with this ability was that it was you would mark enemies, right? And when the enemies that were marked, you would use Soul Fist, so you could mark the entire screen. Then any amount of enemies, 110, 1, doesn't matter. And when you would use Soul Fist, you would like hit them, so apply hit effects like poison and stuff, and you would get the ward from it, from the ward nodes. And basically that caused the build to be pretty OP, especially against density in arena. So the more mobs you were fighting, the more ward you would do, and that definitely needed to be nerfed, right? But in order to nerf that, they didn't nerf the ward itself. Well, they did, but they didn't net they didn't target just that. What they did is like, okay, so if they're getting too much ward for hitting 100 enemies, we're just gonna make it so they can only hit 10 enemies. Problem solved, right? That's kind of like what they did. But obviously now you have a skill that is supposed to be your main damage skill, not just your defense, that can only hit 10 enemies at a time, and you can even choose what those enemies are because it's based on proximity. Uh, and obviously, if you played arena, you probably notice that there's a bit more than 10 enemies at a time. So you can't, like, if you spawn 50 enemies, you have to run around in circles, killing them 10 at a time. You can even damage the other ones. And if you spawn like worms and like a golem, and you want to focus the golem, and the worms are following you and the golem is not, you can't damage the golem until you kill the worms. And obviously, you're not getting any ward because you're only hitting 10 enemies. And you're not doing any damage because you're only hitting 10 enemies. So this skill, in my opinion, is absolutely unusable. The mana cost is absolutely crazy for what it does. the recasts don't work. The ward got nerfed. The hit damage is garbage. It's so bad. It went from the best skill in the game, in my opinion, or almost the best skill. I mean, it was definitely the best skill in the game because of the ladder, right? But it did it with combination of other skills to being unusable. And I think all they had to do is let it hit all the enemies, like every other skill in the game, like Glacier, Meteor. Every skill can just hit. If you hit, you hit, right? So let it be that, and just limit the amount of word you get. So instead of making, like the total targets you can get now is like the base 10 plus another plus another 12 on Crimson Bounty plus another 4, right? So in total you can get around 25, right? Just give it a base 25 targets so you can control the word, and if it's making too much or too low, make the targets that you can get ward be only 25, but make the damage targets be everything. So you can damage all the mobs, but you can only get ward from 20 mobs, right? But again, if you do this for this skill to control ward on hit, because it is basically ward on hit, you also need to control the ward that you're making with stuff like Glacier on ward on hit, or Shatter Strike, or like I don't like. I'm pretty sure the only reason they nerfed this skill is because it basically became like this hot topic just because it pushed like 1,400 waves. But then you have stuff like Shatter Strike, who still gets like 20k ward dispatch, and you can still hit the entire screen, and no one talks about it, right? And to be honest, they kind of like did the same to Shatter Strike. They just like increased the mana cost to an extent where it's just like not very fun to play because you're basically mana striking more than shatter striking. So I think I really like all the changes they did this patch, except this. Like this, in my opinion, it needed to be nerfed, but the way they're nerfed, they didn't nerf it. They just completely changed the playstyle, completely changed the ability, and it's unusable. It's so bad, and it's really unfun to play just because you can't even choose what enemy you're hitting. So it's really really frustrating. I hate it. And obviously I played a lot with this skill, so yeah, it sucks. I don't know what else to say. It sucks.
Yeah, I played it a bit. You know, when you came out with that build, of course, I had to make a video of it, so I played with it for a little bit, and the playstyle was actually really fun with it. And I played it after it got nerfed. The limited targets instantly, your survivability went to garbage.
And everything. The playstyle is garbage.
And so I relooked at the tree, and the things that I would change on it, just like you said, you should be able to target as many ones as you want for damaging. Perhaps limit the same targets or maybe a few more targets for the ward gain, and that's all you get.
Exactly, that's simple. Yeah.
But the other thing that's not in the skill tree that I think if it did a rework that I'd like to see is some interactions with it and another skill.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
like
it should be.
Maybe Reblunt. That would be pretty cool.
Well, another thing I'd like to see it do is I'd like to see it be teamed up with Wandering Spirits. Wandering Spirits isn't really interactive with any other skills other than you yourself, like with your items. But if Soul Feast could hit Wandering Spirits, or do something that that would
maybe buff them or something.
Yeah, so maybe they change the skill to where you can damage all enemies and hit all enemies, but you only get ward from your own minions that you hit, or your own wandering spirits, or something like that, to where the ward wasn't gained from your mobs. If for defense you hit your own guys, and for offense you can hit as many mobs as you want. I don't just make it change it. You could you could do Riplet, you could do anything. Just make it interactive with something else, change it up a bit. I do think the recast mana cost is just absolutely ridiculous, especially since going into it you already have to kill the amount of wards you get. So for you to get no ward from it, or 80% ward reduction, just to have a 300% mana cost, or 450% increased mana cost for some mana recast, or for some possible recast, and that's possible. That's not guaranteed. Just for some possible recast, I feel like it's too expensive.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But this kind of like it's also kind of like this ability kind of like hurt a bit too, because it just felt like it really felt like a very targeted kind of like nerf that I didn't really understand. Sure, the build was very good, but I know, like when I looked at the patch notes, like this ability got completely destroyed. But there's stuff that was completely OP at the level of, not maybe at the level of this, but still, like if this was a 10 out of 10, there was stuff that was like a 9 out of 10, and that's like Glacier, right? Or like and that stuff didn't get touched at all or as much, right? Like Shatter Strike was another super top build. You pushed it like super high, and other people did too, right? Uh, I just don't understand. Like it went like, I don't know, maybe just like, and it also paired up with the general ward nerfs, right? So
Yeah, the
yeah,
idle word
yeah,
nerfs, the word degen,
everything,
it all.
everything. And for, just as a reference, like I spent like the entire patch trying, because you actually needed gear for this character, because you use so many uniques, because you needed the unique helmet, the bone clamor barboot, but you needed a plague bear, you needed exsanguineous, and you needed viper tail. So you had so many uniques on this build that basically, in order to get your crit avoidance, your dodge, and your HP, you basically needed really, really, really good gear, because you only had like five slots for rares. So and on those 5 slots, you needed the set glancing blow, you need the tier 5 crit avoidance, at least 3 of them. You needed all the the set HPs, the set dodges, etc., right? So it was this build actually needed a lot of investment to get it to the point where I took it. And when I was before the patch, when I was sitting on town with my exsanguineous, I had 2.6k worth, so almost 3k worth while being idle in town. When I logged in at the day of the patch, I had 1.2k worth, right? So, and it really sucks because I had like 2,500 HP, right? And like you should be getting at least as much worth as HP you're losing with Exanguinous, and getting Exanguinous, what basically using Exanguinous for me was actually being less tanky than not using it, just going full HP. So I tried playing full HP. I tried playing protections. I tried everything to make the build work because I was still in love with the playstyle, right? I tried using the cone, I tried using it with Dead Seal, even like at some point when Dead Seal came out, and it was just it's just garbage, man. Like it just hurts. And yeah, I really hope they revisit this skill, because it went from being the best ability in the game to being unusable and not fun to play. So obviously, sure, you can nerf its power, but you should never nerf the playstyle, in my opinion. Or you could just make it. I don't know. You could have just removed the word completely if the word was the problem, and that's it, right? Like I think that would have been a better change. Just remove the word. The playstyle doesn't change. You can play the same. You're just not gonna have as much worth, but you keep your word with Exsanguin. And another thing with this build is I think a lot of people really miss, like, because obviously you watch my stream, you watch the gameplay, right? And you say, holy fuck, this guy has like 1,000k worth. I'm fighting when I get 1,000k worth. I'm fighting worms because there's so many of them, and so I have basically 97k worth more than I need. It's just like it's a placebo. It's fireworks. It looks like very strong, but in reality, when I'm fighting the hard waves, against pyromancers and against 4 beetles, when you're only hitting 4 enemies and you have to fight the beetles at wave 1,000, which those are the waves that are gonna kill you with any character, right? At least last patch, I was getting like maximum like 3,000 worth, and 2.7k worth was coming from my gear and my HP because I had very good gear. So a lot of people saw those numbers and they thought that like the build would have worked exactly the same without ward. You would have to play better, obviously, right? But I didn't have any ward when I was fighting the hard fights. So what if you can fight 4 beetles without having the ward on density? What does make you think that you're not gonna be able to fight anything else with density when the build basically allowed you to never be hit just because you were kiting and dashing away from stuff all the time, like with most range builds? So
Yep.
I don't know. I think it was a very bad nerf, but maybe it was necessary, and maybe they can buff the skill again. I don't think this is final for this skill, so I have hopes that this skill will come back. Want to find a middle ground, right? With all the feedback they got and all the data they got now, basically no one plays this anymore. So yeah, hopefully it reaches a healthier place. Yeah.
I think it will. It probably won't this patch, but I do see it getting revisited in the future.
Yeah. But I know they're gonna eventually take a second look at Ward, because I had Judd the other day on my stream and I asked him. So it looks to me like you guys want Ward to just be a layer of defense and not like a full mechanism, right? You know how like dodge, you can't really go full dodge, because if you go full dodge and you don't build anything else, you're still gonna die when you don't dodge, right? So dodge is like a layer on top of your main defense, which can be protections or HP, right?
Yep.
And he told me that they absolutely want ward builds to be a thing, but they just thought that ward got a bit out of hand, and they think it's better to build it up from 0 than trying to reform it from 10. And it makes sense, right? Like burn it to the ground, build it up again, make it a 1, then raise it to a 3, see what people can do with it, then raise it to a 4, then raise it to a 6, and eventually it will reach a healthier state, right? So that's what I'm hoping for, at least. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think it will.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, RIP Soulfist. I will forever remember you. It was so fun to play too. That's the annoying part, because right now you have builds that are very powerful, but for example, the shield build that I'm playing right now, it's not fun at all compared to the two-handed, because you don't really have to do anything. Soulfist, for example, Soulfist is actually fun to play. Like the playstyle is actually very fun. The problem is the numbers. But so when they nerf a Dead Seal, or they fix it, I mean, they need to nerf the numbers, but not the playstyle, if you know what I mean, right? And with Soulfist, they didn't nerf the numbers, they nerfed the playstyle, and that's what I dislike this. It's the same if they nerf Vengeance now, right? A lot of people want Vengeance to be nerfed. Sure, you can nerf the damage, you can nerf the damage mitigation, but if you do less damage and you have less damage mitigation, nothing changes. Like, you still play the same way, you're just gonna be weaker, but you don't change the way you play. And I think that those are good nerfs. When you nerf stuff, it doesn't change the way you play. It just makes you stronger or weaker, but you don't need to completely. And the same thing happened with Drain Life. Like, adding the mana cost, it didn't nerf the skill. It changed the skill. It went from being a 0 mana skill that you can spam forever to being a skill that is impossible to use because it's so expensive that it's like a one-time thing use, kind of like philosophy now. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they do.
Yeah. Yep. I'm sure it's all subject to changing soon. But speaking of Death Seal.
Yep, there's the next one.
It's gonna be. I don't think they can really nerf the playstyle. I think the playstyle of it's pretty set in stone. I mean, it's literally something.
They can definitely remove that wave. Boom. That's it.
Well, I don't think they would do that. That's not.
That's kind of like what they did with
Yeah, with Soul Feast, that's what they did. But I think with this skill, they're gonna keep it. They enjoy it.
It's like, oh, by the way, that's still only, or they could just like do something like, instead of like spawning every second, it's gonna spawn every 10 seconds or something. That's the level of nerf we're talking that Soulfist got, right? So they can definitely change the playstyle. I hope they don't, because the playstyle is fun. But yeah, instead of doing 10 million damage, it should do maybe like 5,000, like all the other skills.
Yeah, and even if they did get rid of the whole death wave part of it, I mean, there's still other things with it. Just the fact that it's a damage boosting buff or an ailment boosting, it can give you protections.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like, the skill would still be good. I think the skill is still gonna be good, but maybe not good as how we're using it now. I think even if you don't use the death wave, like all the poison stuff and all that stuff is still really, really good for other builds. And the haste is pretty. I like the haste on release too. Like, there's a lot of like global poison, and you could poison chance and all that stuff. So again, it would still be a good skill, but hopefully they just don't change the playstyle, because the build is actually fun. But yeah, going to the skill, super strong skill, super fun. Obviously it's bugged, so a bit annoying.
Now I
like flooded the ladder.
I just looked over this tree and I actually saw something that I hadn't looked at before. You can only use Death Seal as as a lich, right? You can't use it as necro. Hold on,
No,
I gotta
I don't
look.
think so.
Let me see. Yeah,
You can use it on.
death steal's up above the halfway.
Oh yeah, it's on the lich. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was gonna say it might still be possible. I was looking at the minion part of it, and you can get to where Death Wave only targets your minions,
Yeah.
and you can give your minions 300% more damage and critical strike chance, which is huge. But the better part is that your targeted minions will now explode when they die. Could you
Yeah.
imagine if you had a 100 minion build going, and then like you ended it, and not only do your minions explode at the end, but they release a wave, the death wave. So
Yeah.
you'd have 100 death waves
That
instantly.
would be like a cluster bombing. You know, these bombs that explode into small bombs. Boom, boom, boom. It
Yeah,
would be like a minefield.
it would be like an auto casted, sacrifice build. And I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised that they did that to where they have these minion parts, but you can't really run very many minions as a death. Like
I'm
you're
pretty
not
sure
gonna
they're
play
a bit
Lich.
scared.
You're gonna what?
Maybe it's well, you're saying this right, but does it set your minions?
Targets only minions. I mean, it could be, I guess, other
Yeah, but it doesn't
parties.
say yours because when multiplayer comes,
That's
what
true. I guess a Lich and a Necro
you
could
know,
team up pretty
I
well.
run Lich, you run Necro, and there we go. You know, like
That would be pretty cool.
they
I
need.
know they've said some things about being able to sacrifice other people's minions, so I don't know if it'll work,
I don't
but
think
we'll
they
see.
will, right? They're definitely not gonna be that troll.
I'm actually kind of tempted to use this. The 300% minion damage and minion critical strike chance is multiplicative.
Yeah, I know. I think Foe played with it too, because
Well,
he
I
played with the damage and
did he team that up with Harvest? I mean, you could get
I don't know.
360% minion damage on Harvest, and then you can get 300 here multiplicatively. I feel like you could get some minions doing some really good damage. All right.
I have
Anyways,
no idea.
we're getting out of this. If you could
Yeah,
change one thing on this build right now, what would you change?
fix it. uh,
Assuming that it will be fixed within the next week's patch, what's one thing that you would either like added for an element? Like for me, it's the Hungering Souls. I think
yeah,
it should just cast something else. Hungering Souls, unless they buff Hungering Souls, I don't
yeah.
like
If
the
Hungry
fact.
Soul was good, we wouldn't think like that, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
for me personally, I think that I would love if you could add in Marrow Shards, and when the Death Wave hit, it also fired Marrow Shards, in a Nova,
hmm
or they countered, they were in opposite
yeah. This is what we were
timings.
talking earlier, right? That how Marrow, if Marrow Shards was something Nova wise, you could use it in combination with this, with the Aura of Decay, with Reaper form, with so many skills, right?
Yep.
Uh, especially with this skill that if you think about what this skill does, right, it gives you bonus when your HP is low, and then you have Marrow Shards that makes your HP low, but you're leeching and you're using the Deadlock. So it all synergizes in my head, right? It's good. Like Marrow Shard is making your Dead Seal better, and your Dead Seal is making Marrow Shards good, and it's just like good, one of those good connections that right now we don't. Yeah, it would be pretty cool to have those options. But yeah,
I'm
pretty cool skill. I think it was a skill that I don't know. When we saw it, we all kind of like read the chat, like read the specs, and we all thought, okay, I think it's definitely gonna be good with the low life and with Reaper form, right? Because
your life's already low
that's
with
kind of,
it.
yeah, but no one really like tested it until like Foe went hard on it, right, and found all this like crazy stuff.
Yeah, Foe
It was
had
about
the
it was a matter of time, right? So
Yeah, Foe found that death wave just hitting hard as hell because it was bugged. And then it was
yeah,
funny because I saw his build and asked him how he did it, and he told us, and I was gonna make a video on it. And as soon as I actually went into the tree, first time going into the tree, looked at it, and
yeah,
I see this increased damage per missing health, and I saw the
yeah.
increased poison chance, I was like, oh, Foe, your build's gonna have to wait. I gotta do a different one. Like my first thought was
Yeah,
Wandering
'cause you
Spirits
were
is
doing
going
you were
fucked.
doing the one with the immunity, right? For a bit.
Yeah, they had the bone armor immunity, and then you had massive rip blood doing blood splatters, and then wandering spirits was they had like 1,000% poison
Yeah,
chance, and then the damage was multiplicative, so like our damage was getting to
yeah,
like 1,500%. And I'm just like, whoa, forget death wave. you can
yeah.
you can boost anything with this.
Again, and we have right now. I don't think the devs have clarified that this ability is bugged, right? Because they nerfed it and they actually buffed it, and everyone was very confused. Like, wait, what the fuck? It got nerfed, but it's doing more damage. What happened, right? And so I don't know how much, for example, this death wave. How much damage are we talking that we're gonna lose? Are we talking 20% is coming from the bug? Are we talking 90%?
I don't even know.
Right now, no, we don't know, right? So
yeah, I don't even know what the bug is anymore at this point.
the bug was like some internal calculations that were giving you. It was broken math basically that we couldn't see. So, but again, we don't know if that broken math is making you crit from 10 to 10 million, or if it's making you crit from 10,000 to 10 million. Because 10,000 would still be a pretty fucking good damage. But if it goes, because not a lot of abilities on the Lich do a lot of damage in the first place, right? Hit damage. So I'm really, really curious to see what the damage of this ability is gonna be when it's fixed. Because I'm expecting, I wouldn't be surprised if it loses like 90% of its damage, just based on this fix. So just comparing it to how all the other abilities on the Lich work. Since it's Dead Seal, I think it's meant to be used as a buff, not so much like a main damage, right? So we'll see. I don't know, or I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd really like to see Hungry Spirits get reworked, and then I'd really like to have this automatically fired every second. I would really like an interaction like that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I think it's at a good spot where it's at right now. Other than the hit wave damage, I like the poison chance. I like the boost of damage.
Everything else is cool. I like everything else, and I like how it synergizes with Reperform, by the way, which is our next skill. So maybe we can like. And I really dislike, by the way, how Reperform got nerfed because of Death Seal. I didn't like that at all when they hotfixed this in one of the patch in the middle, one of the hotfix patches.
I think there was two things that got it nerfed, but Reaper or Death Seal definitely didn't help with its massive leech from doing a 1,000,000 damage hit.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think nerfed it a bit was the fact that, and I know that I had a dev in my stream which was watching it but didn't say anything, but I know it was watched, was that you had Aura of Decay, which was healing you, and it was outperforming heals. If you had 2,000 plus health, it was outperforming the degen of Reperform. Like, you would literally sit there at low life
forever,
for a really long time, and I think they saw that, and
not forever, but for a long time,
another thing that helped make them just like, all right, it's time to make it degen at a faster rate.
Yeah, but it kind of sucks because if you're not using those skills and you want to do, for example, a Harvest Lich, which we were talking earlier, these nerfs made a build that is already weaker. So, because obviously Reperform is affecting other builds too, right? So, yeah.
And it's something they could easily build into the actual Reperform tree. Like, if you've used Harvest for every time you use Harvest in the last 4 seconds, you degen life 10% slower. Something that would make it to where it's not built for a Death Seal build, but it's meant for a melee build or something.
Yeah, or at least you had the option to specialize, right?
So besides the fact that Reperform, in my opinion, was OP the first time I played, I was like, wow, I get a free life. Like, I don't get that in Werebear. I don't get that in Spring. You like that free life?
I think it's cool, yeah. Because to be honest, the free life, it can feel really OP, but a lot of the times, like, if you don't have enough prods or you don't have enough good gear, well, and you, for example, you're fighting something, you go to Monolith, you have your free life, and you're fighting like a Beastmaster Wengari, right? These axe throwers. Like, he hits you one time, he takes you out of Reperform, he takes you 2 times, you're dead, right? Like, a lot of the times, like, or you see it a lot of time, like, you don't manage your like your decay properly, and then you instantly lose it. You didn't expect losing it, you get hit, you die, and the second life is relative, right? It's on perfect scenarios. Like, it's a second life versus something like, you imagine you get hit by the bazooka of a golem and only the golem is alive. Sure, you run around for a bit, you transform again. But to be honest, like, if we lose the second life, like, you need some defense. You need to compensate the Lich with other defenses. Maybe Reperform should just give you DR for the sake of being on it, but then everyone would run Reperform anyway, right? So I don't know. I like the theme. I like how it can give you crazy lifesteal. I like how I like the play style. Of like having to be on the fight, like lifestealing in order to be on it. It gives you like kind of like that berserker feel of gameplay when you're with the increased health leech and all that. And I think the double dashes with the rip is really fun. And I like that it's kind of like this berserk mode. I really like that you can build some attack speed on it. I wish it was a bit higher. But then I think there's some nodes that are completely old and completely outdated. Like for example, get 40 ward when you transform. Like 40 ward, like for what? Like, who cares, right? So
Yeah, that's not going to do you much good.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It has some interesting options with turning reap into cold. Like I don't really know. Like harvest doesn't have any cold options, I think, right? As far as I know, that are usable at least. I know your minions can do cold stuff, but it's like that. It gives you freeze rate. Like I don't really know what they're doing with the cold necro, which I think it would be cool, by the way, to have a cold kind of like Lich King from World of Warcraft kind of like build going on, where you're like this frozen skeleton.
Yeah, I could see that. Like from uh, not Hunger Games, but
Yeah,
what
yeah,
was Game of
yeah. It's from
Thrones.
Hunger Games. Too. Yeah, Game of Thrones. Yeah, yeah. The Walkers or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I would love an ice army of the dead.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Um,
So
there's actually, I'm. It's funny when we do this. I go over every node, and it's like, how did I miss this? There's
yeah.
Death's Door. For some reason, I thought it was
Mhm.
only reap hit damage. And now
Yeah.
that I'm thinking about Death Seal, because we just talked about, I'm looking at you get 100 per, you can get up to 100% increased multiplicative damage. That's global damage.
But I think it's
While
increased damage, right?
no, it's
The
multiplicative.
reap, no, the reap is multiplicative, but the other damage is increased. I'm
Oh,
pretty
is
sure.
it? Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. You deal more damage with the rip, and you deal increased damage while in rip perform.
Well,
So,
that's not as cool. I was hoping it was multiplicative. I was like, I should have
but to be
tagged.
honest, why not make it multiplicative? You're a fucking in rip perform. You should be making at least double the damage than when you're not. That's what, right? At least to me, like, and double the damage. Like, there's other classes that can do. Like you can get that on Glacier. Why not on Reperform? You can get that on all of the skills, right? You can get that on Vengeance, like all the like more damage. You can get like what 125% on Vengeance, just multiplicative. So why not on Reperform? Like
That's true.
especially since Leech is supposed to be a DPS class. Like she like the Leech is not tanky, right, at all compared to Sork or compared to Sentinel or compared to Primalist. So it should at least do more damage. If it's half the tanky, it should do double the damage at least to make it worth. So, but again, these trees are also a bit old and stuff, and I think they were very cautious at the beginning with the more damages, right? And you can see like the new trees, for example, like they realize that people are really liking building around more damage, and it's a really good way to make builds work and to scale them and to balance them. All right, just balance the more damage components. And you can see, for example, Dead Seal is a new skill, and Dead Seal has more damage everywhere, right? And they don't even they give you more damage. Like they're not scared of giving it to you. They give it to you when the enemies are. They give you more damage when the enemies are poisoned. They give you more damage if the enemies are damned. They give you more damage in general, just multiplicative on lethal release. They're not scared of giving you more damage. But then you look at Reperform, and they're like you can tell the skill is older because they're just so cautious of giving you multiplicatives. Uh, if this skill was new, a lot of these numbers instead of being increased, they would just be like lower numbers, but they would be more. I feel that's my feeling, and it would actually make it. I don't know. I feel like if you go on Reperform, you should be badass damage. And right now, you don't even do as much damage as a Sork, while the Sork is 10 times tankier than you because of Flame Ward.
Yeah,
So I don't
I
know.
I agree. Maybe it's a base damage thing because I mean, when you look around at all the trees, if you look at Death Seal, just huge amounts of damage. You have there is a lot of damage in Reaper form. I mean, you're talking about you get 80% damage in Soul for a Soul, another 100% from Reaper's Curse, another 100% from Death's Door. You're talking about 300% damage almost just right there in those three notes. On top of that, you have Death Seal, which is giving you another 200. Well, it's multiplicative, so I mean it could
Yeah,
just double whatever you have, and then you have
yeah, but that's the thing, right?
Harvest.
The multiplicatives just outshine like all of this, I feel.
Yeah, and then you have the Harvest with the 360% increased damage. I feel like when you tag team those, you should be hitting really, really hard, and for some reason the Lich, as a melee build,
Doesn't.
just
Yeah.
doesn't. So I don't know what they're trying to make up for, or why something. It just seems kind of broken. Like you have skills that are bugged, and like even if you use Death Seal with Harvest, which we've done, Harvest is still not good. So
Yeah.
like there's something maybe just Harvest needs its base damage improved or that
And the
like we
70%
said.
effectiveness on weapon damage is just like, for like you lose so much damage from it. Imagine you have a Sovnia with 100 damage, right? But you're only getting 70% effectiveness, right? So that's already 70. If you had 100% more damage, so imagine you did double damage, right? With 100% more damage. Well, that 70 is 140, right? But the 100 is 200. So, that efficiency is making every buff that you get from every other source worst because the value it's multiplying is just lower than every other skill. Like if you have 100% increased damage, like 120, 100 increased more damage on Vengeance, and Vengeance has a Sovnia, right, with 100 damage, flat damage. Well, Sovnia is gonna do Vengeance is gonna do 200 damage, right? Because 100 times 2, 200. But if you have the same modifier on Death Seal with the same weapon and the same modifiers, regardless of the base damage of Vengeance and the base damage of Harvest, Harvest is doing 140. So you lost 80 flat, like 60 flat. Sorry, 60 flat damage is insane in last Epoch, right? Like it's like a full weapon almost. So yeah, I don't know why they did that. So it's like that needs to be reverted for sure. The efficiency. Um, so yeah. But again,
Well,
Reaper form is really cool. The concept. I really like the lifesteal stuff. I really like Reap. It's really fun to play. Uh, yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
I love the leech play style. It's not about
Yeah,
the protections, it's not about defense, it's about how fast can you leech. Like, and I get it as a DPS build. It's supposed to be putting out the damage. And if this,
right.
when you're in Reaper and you're using Death Seal and it's doing its 1 million damage hits, you are invincible. You are the best tank in the game because you are leeching
Yeah, because
more
you're
health than
doing
you could
4
ever
million
take.
damage. Yeah,
And so I think building upon that, I think when Harvest does more damage, as soon as Harvest can hit for 2 or 3 times what it is now, it will
yeah,
become a very, very tanky build just because you're now
yeah.
leeching
Exactly.
enough to stay alive.
The problem is exactly what you're saying. You're supposed to be a DPS leech berserk kind of like playstyle, right? Like, as long as you're hitting and you're doing damage or leeching and you stay alive, and you can just see your life going up and down, and it's like a very volatile and risky playstyle, right? And that's cool. The problem is like right now because you don't have enough DPS to sustain that unless you're playing Dead Still, which is bugged, right?
Yep.
Basically, you don't have enough. You don't do enough damage to have enough leech to survive. So then you go, well, I'm not doing enough damage, so I'm just gonna try to build tanky, right? Because that's what people are trying. Oh, I'll go defenses or something, or I'll go HP, I'll go whatever. People are desperate. I'll go dodge, I'll go whatever. But then you don't have anything on your tree, on your passives, that is helping you build either protections, right? Yeah. Or HP or dodge or anything like that. So basically, you end up with this like character that is supposed to be good at DPSing, but it's not good at DPSing. So she's trying to go tank, but she's not good. She's not a good tank. So what do you do? What do you if you want the leech to be effective, then it has to do enough damage so she can leech enough.
Yep.
So yeah,
And
I
and
think
it
you basically nail it what it needs, just more damage.
yeah, it's just more damage, and I think if they add another melee
And hit
skill,
damage, not dot damage. We already have dots. Like that's the thing. Don't buff poison. buff everything that is not poison about the Lich. Because right now, Lich, all it is if it wasn't for poison, who would play Lich, right? And the bug that still, but no one,
Yeah.
right?
And back before they did that whole patch nerf on Leech when it used to be really strong, damage. Uh, you played before they nerfed the whole the armor and protection patch, right?
The one on the Druid and all that, yeah.
Well, not just the defensive armor protection. When mobs used to not have them, so mobs used to be like the
No,
training dummy.
yeah, I didn't play that. No,
Oh well, you
I
used
started
to.
on 7.6.
Yeah, skills used to hit really hard. Harvest used to be like a 20k
Oh,
crit skill because there was no armor
yeah,
and
yeah.
protections. And
But they give
Leech,
them prods. Yeah,
yeah, and so back then that's when it was super good because Leech was crazy. It was like you can't die because one hit, you were just always
yeah,
thankful. And then I feel like when they did the armor and protections, they should have buffed Harvest at the same time and a lot of skills. But yeah, as soon as Harvest does more damage, it's gonna go back to the way it was where you are tanky
it just
because of that
some skills
Leech.
are outdated. It's basically what you're saying. The game has changed, the skills hasn't. So the skills that haven't adapted yet, they just feel outdated and old, pretty much.
Yeah, I
So
mean they did a global change that affected the entire game with the armor and protections, and
and now the word, yeah,
and the ward, and that was global and a lot of build defining ones. Anything that depended
yeah,
on ward or leech, they unless they all got updated at the same time, they were going to be affected, and that's you
yeah,
can't update it all at one time. So it'll come
yeah,
back.
yeah. Well, pretty cool. That was a pretty long conversation, but we got everything. So
Yep, it's all in there. I hope it.
cool.
Gives the people what they want. They were asking for Acolyte next, so.
So there it is.
All right, that's it from us. If you guys liked what you heard and you'd like more discussions like this, make sure to leave some feedback of things you'd like us to include or declude in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe. There will still be the 2 more parts on the classes we haven't done, and of course, another part after the Rogue is released, and possibly we'll be doing lots more updates as more skills are released and classes like the Warrock and Ruin Master. So feel free to hit a subscribe. Feel free to like the video if you liked it. And if you have any ideas for videos that you would like about Last Epoch, feel free to throw those in the comments below as well, and we can talk about it and make it happen. Thanks, and have a good day.